Right, we're back again, streaming on a weekend, on a Saturday, and we've got another new background. I don't know how good this background is going to be. It's new, it's experimental, but it looks decent to me. So yeah, we're going to get some debates going today, get some more conversations. So the framing of the background is different, the sort of language on it. Oh, it's my biggest fan has joined the stream. That's nice to see. It's always good to see my biggest fans. So the text now says, total extinction is the only right thing to do because it ends all suffering. Debate me. And our movement is working to achieve this, proextinction.com. Yeah, I don't know, the text might be too high up, it might be a little bit obfuscated, it's kind of hard to see on my screen. We've got lots of HUD, lots of HUD stuff as a creator and a host. You see loads of junk on the screen that other people probably don't see. Anyway, what are we talking about today? Well, I've put out a few videos today, you guys have probably seen a few of them, against veganism, antinatalism, the difference between farmed animals and wild animals. And yeah, I mean, I would rather be a farmed animal than a wild animal, hands down. The thing is, right, you're not running for your life constantly, you're not in absolute fear and terror and panic non-stop. Instead, it's very miserable and uncomfortable, but at least you get, some benefits. Effectively, wild animals have none of the benefits of civilization that farmed animals get. Actually, farmed animals get a lot of benefits of civilization, if you think about it. They get medicine, they get shelter, safety, consistent food that's probably not too bad. They get euthanasia, they get lots of benefits. Wild animals, however, get zero benefits. The only difference is that they get freedom. But that same freedom that wild animals get is essentially freedom to suffer. So think about it this way. If you were on an island and you were in a prison, and the rest of the island, there was no way off, but it's just full of wolves. Would you leave the prison if you could and try and live in the wild on the island? Probably not, right? You've got no beds, you've got no food, no shelter, no heating, nothing. No medicine, right? So, yeah, I'd probably stay in the prison. I'd probably stay in the prison if I was on an island like that. And so it is the same thing for farmed animals and wild animals. As horrible as it is to be a farmed animal, I do think it's better than being a wild animal, right? Would you rather live inside or outside? Would you rather have constant danger or constant safety, albeit miserable? Yeah. I think you're a lot safer and calmer, better looked after as a farmed animal than a wild animal. Oh, thanks for joining, Salazar, and encouraging self-harm. That's very terrible of you, but perfectly expected of you as well. You're a naughty boy, Salazar, and you should really be banned. It's funny. The pro-extinction movement is against self-harm, it's against antinatalism. We want a strong and healthy human population to be able to end all suffering for other animals, right? And yet, despite that, it's the perfect sort of thing for people to just say you first and get away with breaking the rules of the platform because it's just, ironically, it gives them some sort of cover to do it. So you can't even report these trolls. Anyway, yes, total extinction is the only right thing to do because it ends all suffering. If you watched my last stream, we kind of, really wrecked some people in debates. You could even say that my argumentation and logic is improving. But, that's natural, right? That's to be expected. And why wouldn't it, right? If you join a movement as an activist and start trying to defend it and debate the side, obviously you're going to get better at that. But I would say that, like, I am perhaps now the master debater. And I still maintain that I've not lost a single debate in my, I think it's now 16 live streams on TikTok that I've done. Because you can't lose a debate if you're arguing for extinction. It's not a debate that you can lose. How are you going to lose a debate about extinction? What, someone's going to say, you know what, children being tortured to death is a good thing, and I'm going to say, you know what, you're right. I've been wrong all this time. No, that's not going to happen. You can't defeat extinctionism in a debate. It's quite literally undefeatable. Have you ever tried devil's advocate for this to improve? Yeah, actually, we do mock debates between us in the movement sometimes. Steve, who founded the movement, he loves doing mock debates. He'll pretend to be just another pro-suffering person. I'm watching Twitch, and they can say whatever they want on Twitch. They can use any word whatsoever, no matter how nasty it is. But on TikTok, you get immediately banned for it. So I have to use very gentle language here. All right, we have our first caller. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. What's the argument for total extinction?
Yeah. Allowing suffering is bad and wrong, and therefore we have to eliminate all suffering.
And what's your kind of pragmatic proposal here to get your worldview established?
Well, it's a very specific question, but yeah, we're
A very specific person.
we're growing the movement, we're getting the message out there, we're developing the movement, developing the ethics of it, but it's very simple to sort of get on board. You don't have to know anything about it in order to agree with it, and
Yeah.
to agree with a suffering-free world being the top priority, and nothing else should be the priority. That's the reason I joined the movement. That's what they said to me, and I was straight on board.
So no. I think maybe the question that I'm asking here is like, what's your plan? Like, do you plan on like telling everybody and then kind of like a Kool-Aid incident where we all just drink Kool-Aid and slowly fade away?
No, nothing like that. So first we need total animal extinction on Earth, and then we need total extinction of the universe if possible. Now, we don't know how much of that is achievable, but as much as possible. And then finally, once there's no more help that we can possibly do as a species, humanity can finally be the last ones to stop suffering. I don't know exactly how it's going to go down because that's in the future, right? It'd be difficult to say whether it's going to involve Kool-Aid or something a bit more serious than that.
Okay, so let's get into sort of the meta-ethical claims here. You hold, it sounds like you hold to a harm reduction.
Not reduction, harm elimination.
Right, so you want to eliminate as much harm as possible, which would be total extinction. So it would be harm reduction.
Well, again, the thing is there is a difference between reduction and elimination. A lot of people advocate for harm reduction as opposed to harm elimination, but that's unfair to the victims, right? Unless you're striving to eliminate harm, then you're by default allowing some, right?
So are you like a harm abolitionist in which
Yeah.
we don't want to stop any harm unless it's complete and swift? Or do you want to reduce as much harm as possible until you get to the point of elimination?
Yeah, we should do both, right? But the thing is that reducing harm should never be done at the expense of ending harm. If you can end slavery, but you choose to just reduce it instead, then that's wrong, right? But yes, we should reduce and eliminate suffering as much as possible.
Well, okay. So, just quick, clearly, I'm just going to point out the quick contradiction. You said that you're not a harm reductionist, although you say we should follow harm reduction to get to elimination. So it does seem as though you do follow harm reduction. Um,
Well, maybe not your definition of harm reduction, right? So for a lot of
does
people,
it matter? Well, it wouldn't matter if it was my version or my definition
well,
of harm reduction.
let's not play word games,
If
right?
you hold to some form of harm reduction, then it would be harm reduction.
Well,
But sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
let's not play word games, okay?
It's not work. I mean, you were the one that brought up definitions, not me.
Okay. But there's no point trying to play gotcha games with words, right? Let's focus on the actual argument.
I'm just trying to view the consistency within your argument, and I'm pointing out inconsistencies within your argument. One, when you say, I don't believe or hold to a harm reduction theory, but then out of this other corner of your mouth, you're like, well, we should try to do both and reduce as much harm as possible until we reach elimination. So I'm just trying to point out
an
the
important
consistency.
distinction, you see. And that is that you have people advocating for the elimination of harm and people who are quite literally against the elimination of harm and would rather reduce harm as an excuse not to eliminate it, right? Because they can benefit from it. So in the same way that slave owners would say, let's improve the conditions for our slaves instead of ending slavery, a lot of people prefer to say, let's not end suffering. We can keep benefiting from exploiting it, and we can just reduce it a little bit so that we feel less guilty.
Well, you don't think that it's a bit absurd to say that that you don't think that most harm reduction theorists want to eliminate all harm?
Yeah, I don't think that's absurd at all.
You think that most harm reduction theorists don't want to eliminate most harm or all harm?
Maybe they would if they could, wish for it, but they wouldn't do it at the expense of pleasure, right? So the thing is about extinction, it says that the victims come first at all costs, right? They are the top priority. So harm reductionists, they say we shouldn't end suffering as fast as possible. We should have a balance, basically, and we can exploit the victims and the sufferers who we aren't ending the suffering for, right?
You find
So,
that to be intuitive? That the position you just stated?
say again?
You find that position you just stated to be intuitive? You think that most harm reduction theorists, I mean, you're kind of, again, another contradiction here. You say, well, hey, here they, maybe they would wish for, I believe that they would wish for all harm to be snapped away, but now you're saying out of the other side of your mouth, well, they want to balance that and do it gradually.
What I'm
So which
saying
one
is
is it?
perfectly accurate.
Huh?
What I'm saying is absolute truth. You're just describing what I'm saying. You're not even disagreeing with it.
Well, I know I'm pointing out the contradiction. You're again speaking out of both sides of your mouth, saying one, they wish to.
Okay. Right. Let's get someone else on. I'm bored of that guy. Right. In the meantime, now that annoying person is gone, I can maybe try and respond to some of the madness that was coming out of them. Okay, the gibberish. Now that then the avalanche of gibberish has stopped, we can try and clean it up a little bit. So they were essentially saying that harm reductionists, sometimes referred to as negative utilitarians, right? They had no point essentially. If you truly prioritize suffering reduction and elimination, then you should be an extinctionist. There is no other way. I've debunked this in my other videos. Essentially, there is no other way to provide a 100% safety from suffering and forced existence without extinction. And there's also no efficient or effective way to do it either. For example, if you have an animal today, right, it's possible to euthanize it, but it's absolutely impossible to give it that same 100% safety from suffering in any other way. You can't cure all diseases or prevent all diseases. You can't prevent a criminal from running in and grabbing it and then taking it to a dungeon and torturing it. You can't prevent it from having mental illness, brain damage, right? Lots of things. So only non-existence actually protects from the only real bad thing in the world, which is suffering. All right, the queue is filling up. Let's take some calls. Here we go. Is it loading? Loading in. Hello.
So I know that you dropped me, but I was wondering if you wanted to have a one-on-one formal debate in which we had a moderator to kind of control whether or not the conversation's going a specific way. I think that you dropped me.
We can do it a long-form debate, but we don't really do moderators.
Why not?
Just can't be bothered. It's too much hassle.
And wait, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
Well, look, that's the option. You can take it or leave it.
I'm not. I'm just curious on why you think it's too much hassle. You're gonna drop me again?
Yeah, I am. Right. We're here to debate people. If you want to do a long form debate, send me a message and we can set it up. We don't really bother with moderators. Hello, how's it going?
I'm all right. I'm all right.
So, how can I serve you with Extinction today?
Well, excuse me. I was just finishing my breakfast. Excuse me. Why is it, from your worldview, that extinction is the only means by which to end all suffering?
Yeah. So it might not be the only way to end all suffering, but it's the only way to do it ethically and morally, right? Because it essentially says that we should prioritize the victims at all cost, prevent all suffering as fast as possible. So, if you don't have those principles, then you're letting the victims down. You're saying preventing suffering isn't as important as doing it in a way that we can benefit, right? So that's unfair.
How do you know from your paradigm what you say is ethical is actually the case?
So it's not really difficult. It's actually very simple morality and simple ethics. So I'll
simple ethics. Simple ethics is question begging. How do you know your system of ethics is the right one or is what's most desirable?
Super easy. It's super easy. Okay, here it is. Allowing others to suffer is wrong. Making others.
How do you know that?
That's just obvious, right? So
it's not obvious. You need to make an argument for that. It's not obvious. You need to make an argument.
Okay. Making others suffer is bad. Allowing others to suffer is bad, right? Obviously. And
no, they're not. No, they're not. Argue. Make an argument.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for coming on. It is bad because it's bad for the victims, and therefore it is already bad, right? So in that sense, what is good and what is bad actually only applies to living beings. If you have a universe that's just a bunch of rocks and no life, then there's no room for like good and bad there. There's just rocks doing nothing. It's only when you have life forms that good and bad actually starts to take meaning and relevance, okay? So, why is it bad to make, a child suffer? Well, it's bad because it's bad for that child, right? Now, we're not talking about, meaningless, shallow suffering that people can benefit from, like why, they're bored in school or something. But, a child being tortured to death, that's obviously bad for the child. It's a horrible experience for them. And if you really struggle to understand that concept, then there's something very wrong with you. Okay, so we're talking about simple stuff, obvious stuff. It's wrong to make others suffer. It's wrong to allow others to suffer. Okay, and so suffering is bad. It's wrong, and essentially, no child deserves to suffer. No animal, no person deserves to suffer, especially so that others can benefit. But that is the current system that we have. All right, let's take someone from the queue. Get back on it. Hello.
Hello. I have a question. So, what do you? I just joined like 10 seconds ago, so I didn't hear everything you said. But what do you think? What do you say to people who take the suffering as like to grow. Like people who accept suffering like is needed to grow.
Yeah, that's a privilege of a very small minority. That only applies to a very small minority. So that's a form of
And what
privilege,
can
and
you
it ignores the real victims, right? So the real victims
who
don't grow
okay.
from suffering. If a child gets cancer, you wouldn't say congratulations. You're really going to have some amazing character traits after you
Well,
maybe
I
get
think we're
like.
speaking on two different things. I'm speaking on, well, before we speak broader, I was just speaking on something specific. I'm saying like specifically for people who take their suffering and know like it's temporary or like they'll gain something, like not gain something from it, but like it's
Well,
not the end of the
it's
world.
irrelevant, right? It's unimportant. It doesn't matter. That what really matters is more extreme suffering, right? So you're talking about something that you know it's not important, right? If someone goes to the gym and they suffer because their arms are sore, but it gets bigger the next day, that's not really relevant to this conversation.
Okay, so what would you say to people who suffered and gained something out of it, or like a new perspective on life, or they got in a better place in life? Would you tell them that their suffering wasn't like needed or worth it? Like, I think they would probably disagree. I'm pretty sure nobody wants suffering, but like if it happens, it's out of our control, and like they try to like rebound from it and they grow from it. I think that they'll take that as part of their lesson, like as like a life lesson. I don't think they would like try to banish suffering or
We
like
try
diminish.
not to focus on the privileged elite minority um, when there's
So
a vast majority that actually need help.
okay, so like so all right, so like what is your what is your overall stance? Because like I said, I joined recently, so
So we should have total animal extinction on Earth. We should have the biggest extinction in space and the universe possible. We don't know how much of that we can do, but we should give it a go. And then finally, once there's literally nothing else we can do, humanity can go extinct as the last ones because we're the only ones that can prevent suffering for other life forms.
okay, so all right, so okay, all right, two things. So I guess the first thing is how do we get to this extinction? Are we just gonna start killing everybody? And two, when you say like it would just be humans left, I don't think it would just be humans left. I don't think we're going to be the last ones to go on this planet. I think we're probably going to be one of the first. I don't think we're going to be able to kill everything and be the last ones alive to kill ourselves.
Well, that's you're entitled to your opinion, right? But we're against acts of violence and things like that. Like I said, we need to be the last ones to go. So we need a strong, healthy, happy humanity in the meantime.
Okay, so are you like looking for a humane way for extinction, or are you just looking for extinction in general? I'm like,
The most humane way is definitely preferred, but it's not strictly necessary.
I'm sorry, what you say? Like your mic dampered a
Yeah,
lot.
so the most humane way is preferred, obviously, but it's not strictly necessary.
So like this hypothetical would only work if everybody prefers the extinction.
No, no, no. So you're never gonna get 100% of agreement with anything, right?
Right.
So
Right.
most likely some force will be needed, but it's the same thing that police officers do when they tackle a criminal, right?
Right. So do you not like since we're speaking like hypothetically, do you not think it's possible that like as we, evolve, we're more humane, I would say, than we were two. And we still have wars, it's a lot of bad shit still happens, but we're way more humane, I think, than we were 100, 200, 300 years ago. Like, I don't, like, do you not think, like, with enough progress, like, we can, like, just, like, get that down to a minimal amount and just,
No,
evolve as a species over time?
no. Animal suffering has never improved. Okay, they're the vast majority of the population. So maybe for humans in the far future, maybe, but realistically for animals, their suffering has never improved or changed in millions of years. It's just terrible. They have the worst conditions of any life on the planet. They're in constant danger, constantly running for their lives, being eaten alive, starving, freezing to death, burning alive in forest fires, drowning, all sorts of terrible things, right? So
Yeah, since the beginning of time. Since the beginning of time, before humans have been here. So, like, So like, are you just like saying like we just need extinction in general, or like are you saying like humans are responsible for the overall suffering? Or
No, humans aren't responsible for causing suffering. The vast majority of suffering happens to wild animals in nature, and it's completely independent of humanity.
right? Okay, so you just like have so like your main issue is just the way of life, basically. Like,
See, it's not a hypothetical, by the way. It's a real movement, and essentially, we have a zero tolerance policy on suffering and victims, right? So nobody should have to suffer. There's no flip side or positive that justifies it.
okay, like do you see this as something that's possible, or it's just like a fairy tale?
No, it's very
Like,
possible.
I think everybody wants like no suffering, but like that's like saying we don't want no murders. I mean, even if 99% of us say that, it's always going to be someone out there, going against the wave. Um, and like this is like how life evolved. Even with bacteria, you could say they suffered. But like to get to where we are, like life and death. Like suffering is a part of it. It's part of death. Sometimes, sometimes you suffer and die. But life and death, it's like it's a cycle, and we evolve from it. I don't see why, like I said, we're pretty advanced. Like I said, we got things pretty. It's better.
Don't
It's a
see
lot
why.
better than it was.
Don't
It's a
see
lot
why we
better.
should have extinction.
Can you repeat that?
You were about to say, I don't see why we should have extinction, right?
Well, I think that's just like I don't know if
And
it's pessimistic.
the
I don't
answer
know
is
if it's
very simple.
pessimistic
So
or
that
or,
no
or
one has to suffer anymore.
yeah, but then we all be dead, and
Yeah.
then
What's wrong with that?
I think a lot of people would rather suffer and live. Like obviously people who like commit disagree, but like I think everybody here like we suffer on some level day to day, whether it's emotional stress or just work. I'm pretty sure you're not just speaking on small stuff like that, but like suffering is suffering. Like we just all kill ourselves. I don't think that's solving anything. I mean, sure, there's no suffering, but there's no life either. And I guess that's your goal. You don't like really care for life. You just want like
Well, it's actually the opposite. It is about caring about life. It's not. You see, people say you should value life, right? But no,
yeah,
actually,
but you can't have life without suffering. So if you don't want
yeah.
suffering, you don't want
But
life.
there's no point valuing life. Okay, you should care about life. And if you care about life, then you wouldn't want it to suffer, and you would understand that there's no trade-off, right? That's acceptable because essentially it's exploitation. If you're
So if
allowing
you're
persons to
so
suffer terribly, then it's wrong.
so hypothetically, let's say like you have a child hypothetically, or it don't gotta be your child. Someone they got cancer or whatever, and they're in your care. Like, are you just going to euthanize them just because they're suffering, or are you going to give them a chance? Suffering is painful, but like I'm sure with time, if they're lucky, they'll be able to recover and live. Like I said,
Yeah,
suffering is temporary. I think suffering is a temporary thing,
the unlucky ones shouldn't have to suffer so that some lucky ones can maybe not suffer, right?
but it's about the choice of being able to
But
not suffer.
nobody chooses to be born, right? So that's a massive consent violation, and that's another part of the reason why extinction is the right thing to do.
It's a consent violation, or you can't consent to nothing if you don't exist yet.
But but no, the point is nobody chooses to be born into a life that they never asked for and didn't want.
Right, and a lot of people who are born, they know they're here already. A lot of people don't want to die. Right, we do our best not to die a lot, and sometimes we suffer along the way.
So
And
but that's an exploitative relationship, right?
well, with life or with
You're
biology, I mean,
saying
I
that
guess.
you're describing a dynamic of oppression, exploitation, abuse, cruelty. Some lucky ones should thrive off of the suffering of the unlucky ones, is what you're suggesting, right?
I'm saying like I think like I'm saying suffering is temporary, right?
But that's something an oppressor would say, right? That's something a rapist would say. Shush now, your suffering will be temporary.
Okay, I think it depends on the type of suffering, but
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because there's lots of different types of suffering. So we shouldn't discriminate and say, well, this person deserves to suffer and they don't, or their type of suffering is
so if someone
not
got a flu
reasonable
and they're
in a.
suffering, your first choice would just be euthanize them because they're suffering. Like what if they tell you they don't like? What if they tell you they don't care that they're suffering and they just want to live still? Like, what do you say to that?
What if a crazy person said, "I don't want to be arrested. I may have just murdered someone, but I don't want
Okay,
to
but
be arrested."
we're not speaking about we're speaking about the normal person, right? They're suffering, right?
Normal
Like
people,
you don't need no rapist to suffer, right?
the
You
normal
suffer.
people that you're talking about are selfish, privileged oppressors who
People,
who are happy to condemn others to suffer for their
wait, I'm
benefit.
not speaking about putting others. I'm saying people who are suffering, right? Let's say I have a flu, right, and I'm suffering. I don't want somebody just coming in for me saying I should just, that I should just be euthanized. I'm gonna tell them no. Like, yeah, the suffering suck, but this shit temporary. Like, I'm not about to just you're not just about to kill me
Yeah,
over this.
but
Relax.
ultimately, someone has to be making responsible decisions. Okay,
Right, that's what like doctors that we had the doctors for and shit like that.
there has to be supervision. Someone has to make these decisions for the
Yeah, we had
greater.
we had the doctors, and when the suffering's bad, you can get euthanized.
Okay, but the thing is, right? The main reason for euthanasia is not to prevent your suffering, although that is part of it. But the main reason is to prevent you from reproducing and essentially torturing new children that will be forced into suffering, right?
Is that the case?
Yes.
Like, I think if you have stage 5 cancer, they're not worried about you having kids. They're worried about ending your pain. Like, I don't like.
Like I said, without total extinction, you're always going to have new generations, and none of them asked for to be born, right? And the
Mhm.
worst off suffer so bad that it is unquestionably cruel and unfair and wrong to do this to them, to force them to exist into extreme suffering, right?
So
That's
there's two
cruel,
wrongs make a
bad,
right.
and wrong. Say again?
So there's two wrongs make a right. Like, people want to live though. Like, I don't
So
like. I,
is tackling a criminal wrong for a police officer to do? Because that's two wrongs
that's
making
not a
a right.
that's not a wrong. He's stopping a criminal. That's the
Okay,
right thing.
okay.
That's not too wrong. The wrong would be if he helped the criminal out or something. That would be too wrong. He's
No,
stopping him.
you are getting it confused, right? You're saying, is force ever justified for protecting others, right? Yes, absolutely. The police do it every single day.
Okay.
Effectively, the harm that you might experience from euthanasia is nothing compared to the harm that it's safeguarding from, not just for you, because everyone has a worse death than euthanasia, really. A natural death is a bad one. And
Yeah.
again, it stops you from having another generation who never asked to be born and aren't in safe conditions. Okay, so
So
that's bad.
do you wish he was never born?
No,
So you're happy to so you're happy to be born without your consent.
I mean, I'm not too happy about it, to be fair. However, activists like myself believe in carrying on and helping others at our own expense.
Okay, so you're putting yourself in suffering to help others. But like not to sound like super like what's the word? Like, I ain't trying to sound evil or nothing, but like
But
how did I say this without getting
I'm not
taken down?
racist. But here it
No,
comes.
not race. No, not
Right,
racist. I'm saying, but
here comes the but. Let's hear it.
but you're saying like you're putting yourself in suffering to help others, and your whole thing is ending suffering. I'm saying, like, why wouldn't you just end yourself?
I've
I
just told
guess
you
I'm
that. Right? I've just told you that.
okay.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming on. When it gets to the point that you're encouraging self-harm, that is usually the point where we have to kick you out. However, we are going to get someone else on as soon as the queue fills up with morally good people and not morally relevant people. Luke and my moderators, thank you for doing a great job in the chat. One thing you could do to help, which I never do, is encourage people to follow my channel, because it's something I definitely don't do enough. So let's try and, firstly we'll answer that, the last point, try and answer a little bit of it. It's a very common question, how can you cause suffering to end suffering? Well, the police do it every day, okay? It's not a new concept. People like to hold extinctionism to impossible and unrealistic standards that they don't apply to anything or anyone else in the entire world. Okay? So you wouldn't ask a police officer, don't you think you should be nicer to those criminals and, try a more hands-off approach, ask them to stop committing the crime. Yeah, they'll laugh at you. They will laugh at you, right? And we laugh at you too, right? Because it is a silly question. Pacifism in a dangerous and violent world is a very quick ticket to defeat and losing, obviously, right? If you're not willing to use defense, then you're not going to get defended or defend anyone else. So yes, force is sometimes a good thing. Would you say to Superman, please don't hurt that criminal? I would rather he hurts me than you hurt. No, what the hell are you talking about, right? Superheroes use force all the time. The police use force all the time. So forcing extinction is not a bad thing. It is the only right thing. So it's easy to understand, especially for animals. If there's billions of more years of wild animals and farmed animals suffering terribly, then we don't need to keep having new generations forced into existence, into a life that they didn't ask for, didn't want, and then they just get tortured for their entire life to death, okay? Most wild animals get eaten alive as babies. It's not something you would want to experience. It's not something anyone should experience, okay? And allowing it is exploitation. It's wrong. It's saying my privilege is more important than their safety from suffering and their safety. So it's an extremely cruel form of abuse. Actually, the worst form of exploitation. Okay, let's get someone on. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Can I sign a waiver to be the last one to turn the lights out?
You would have to be an activist in our movement to get even close to that.
I mean, I'll sign a waiver. It'll say like, I, Jarek Green of Sound Mind and Body, will not hold harmless and indemnify James. But I would like to hook me up with.
I'm going to
You're
go.
gonna say no.
I'm going.
Why is that?
You don't sound very trustworthy.
Oh, I'm that's okay. That's weird, but all right. What? Okay. Why would I need to be trustworthy if I'm the last person on Earth? You've unalived all animals. There's no life.
Nice.
It's just me. I'm in my cabin in Colorado. I guess I'm on the porch looking at. There's still like trees and stuff, right? Do I still have trees? Cool. So I have trees. I'm not gonna.
Let's say no. There's no trees, no plant life. You do have mountains. You do have mountains with.
I have mountains.
You've got rivers.
Yeah. Okay. And you've hooked me up with like Huel or something. Some very like you can calculate how much life I have left and like just give me boxes of Huel and can I be the last one alive? I'm not going to be able to have kids. There's nobody to mate with. The only suffering I can have at this point is now I've opted in.
Maybe. Okay, maybe.
Okay, if not from a practical standpoint, from a theoretical standpoint, right?
From a theoretical standpoint, then no. The thing is, without total extinction, there's always going to be a chance of some form of reproduction. You might find a laboratory.
I might split my.
You might find a laboratory and clone some humans.
You can take the laboratory. You can fence me in to my 26 acres here in the mountains
Yeah, we're probably going to go with no.
How is that no informed by your plan here? I guess, like, how does that align?
Because you might suffer yourself, right? Most
But
people,
I've opted in, and I appreciate you.
yeah.
I do appreciate
Well,
you. I do appreciate you. You've taken
fine.
my wife and my children, and like they're not suffering. We're great. I, however, would like to opt in.
Okay.
Still.
All right. Maybe we can do it. You know, if we can really say that there's no chance this will go wrong for anyone else,
Okay.
then maybe we could do it. Yeah.
Now, can my best friend, who's a male, we can't procreate, can he also opt in and join me?
It really just depends on the conditions. So, in order to sort of give a better answer to this question, extinctionism is about providing a 100% safety for life from being forced to exist and from suffering. So it would have to work around that standard. Is this going to pose a threat to anyone? Can this go wrong for the people that have opted in? Because even those that make choices, right, they're not always rational choices. Humans have a very powerful survival instinct, optimism bias. And in fact, the optimism bias is one of the most destructive biases that humans have.
I would be optimistic about I'm the last person on Earth, and I'm just trying to hold on to. I want to see as many sunrises and sunsets over my mountains as possible. There's pessimism there for sure.
So
you could say it was, but of sound mind and body and of rational thinking,
but
to be like, I will take whatever suffering.
So the thing is,
in lieu.
The thing is, if you've ever seen the show Severance, it's a really interesting show. It kind of gets into these ideas. We would say it is still wrong to allow a life form to optimistically commit to something that might not be safe. So, for example, you could develop chronic pain, you could develop all sorts of terrible diseases, you could get brain damage, and it could become a life of pure hell and agony, right? So we would prioritize.
I've held you harmless. What if? Okay, let's go further. What if I had? What if I could live 1,000 years? What if What if your plan's not going to happen overnight? Science is going to catch up here, right? So maybe in 1,000 years, you could guarantee me, let's say, infinite life, limitless life. I take some sort of pill. I don't have any chronic illness. I don't have these. You don't have to worry about me, bro. You don't have to worry about me. I'll be fine.
Yeah, so,
but I'll just live. I'll just live totally. Go ahead.
This is actually a question I get almost every day. So, so I know how to answer it. But yeah, so like you said, the mission could take hundreds of years, thousands of years. By then, if we have some sort of method of providing 100% safety,
just for me.
Well, it could be for other people as well. If we have,
I'm only worried about myself right now.
Okay, but then, yeah, what I'm saying is that if we can provide 100% safety, then you can definitely continue to live, because that's what
awesome.
Extinction is about. Extinctionism is about providing 100% safety from suffering and being forced to exist. Okay, so those are the most important principles. Now, in the world we live in, there is absolutely no such thing as 100% safety from suffering, and definitely not from being forced into existence. Okay, so yeah, if we were in heaven right now, we wouldn't have extinctionism. Because
I don't believe it. I don't believe in heaven. That's why I want to stay here as much as possible. So is it? I don't find it odd. That sounds argumentative. Can you say, when I come to here's my hypothetical, because I see this as like you see it as a very pragmatic approach, total extinction.
Okay, yeah.
Because I think one of your claims was like, we'll also get rid of the universe. So in my mind, we are punting this tens of billions of years into the future, because I don't think we have that in our power. So it might as well be as theoretical as my.
Well, the thing about that is that it's just it's doing as much as you can. So Earth extinction, animal extinction, that's already very possible. So we wouldn't not do animal extinction, and before we find out billions of years into the future what we can do with the universe. No, animals should go extinct first.
So there's a harm reduction aspect of it.
yeah, the Milky Way galaxy should go extinct second, and then so on and so forth, right? Or however it's going to go. But you don't have to.
Can you get to total extinction without suffering?
Probably not.
Probably not. So yeah, like you're going to you're going to have to reduce harm in the meantime, right? Like that's just an imperative.
Yep.
So if you want to, I'm trying to think here. How pragmatic is of this? It's hard to tell when I come up here if like this is a fun thought experiment or if this is an active thing you're working towards.
Check out our website. It's a real
I
movement.
will. Well, a real movement could be, the satanic church is a real movement, but in the guise of not promoting a real Satan, but promoting humanist values, right? Is it in that vein? You sneaky little coy, the shrug there. I love it. Okay,
we're
go
an
ahead. Sorry.
atheistic movement.
No, I know, but you understand my question. Satanists, the Church of Satan isn't like we're going to glorify Satan. Its undertone is like, well, no, if we become a church, then we can have the same sort of legal protections that churches do, and we use that then to promote humanist ideals, not necessarily a living or an embodied Satan, right?
Yeah.
Is that the similar sort of thing here, or no?
No.
So okay, so this is not we really want harm reduction. We really want to bring forth the idea of how bad suffering is, and we're going to make this extraordinary claim in order to get people talking about it. This is a real ends to a mean.
Yeah, it's really just simple.
If you had a button in 3 minutes, you would press it.
If we had a button that would,
everything blips out. You have the what was that guy? Thanos. You can snap everybody.
We call it the red button. If we had the red button, yes, we would press it.
You would press it.
Yeah.
No, zero hesitation.
If it ended, the universe, right? Then that ends all child rape or whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely.
Ends all abuse, all torture. So the ones that would benefit from it, who don't want to be tortured, they're relying on us to do it.
The ones that benefit. Oh, okay. That's very. Okay. I was going to say something negative, but I'll choose not to. Okay. So let's go back to my hypothetical. It's me, just me, and I can live as long as I would like because of scientific advancements. Can I be the last one? I'll press the button.
So the thing about optimism bias is it makes people make bad decisions, right? It's why people have loads of kids and then don't look after them, or they all get cancer and die. Optimism bias caused that suffering, right?
I'm not going to have kids and I'm not going to get cancer in my hypothetical.
Again, for us to support your existence, there would have to be 100% safety standard, right? So your choice wouldn't matter, basically. My choice wouldn't matter.
I could. So if I want to ride my ATV around, there's a big risk there. That's a risky. I'm not going to get cancer. I'm not going to suffer from lack of food. I want my mate here so I can not suffer from lack of companionship. Though after 1,000 years, we're pretty close, but after 1,000 years, it might get a little rough. But because I have the ability to go take a walk where I could end up breaking my leg and suffering slowly in the forest, you're going to make that choice for me and say like, nah, I don't care for you signed a waiver. And you're the only one. I care about your suffering too much that I want you gone.
Yeah, I mean, there is no such thing as like 100% safety from anything except in non-existence.
So yeah, I don't think you answered my question. Like that's still even though I've opted in.
Yeah, I'm trying to say that effectively the standard has to be 100% safety. If it's less than that, then we definitely support non-existence.
For the last individual in the world.
Yeah.
Who chose to be in that space.
Yeah.
That to me is the wild bit, I guess. Because we still have, because it strips agency, which I guess you would say like, who cares about your agency? I'm trying to save you from your suffering.
Yeah.
I think that's where people probably obviously have the most rub. I think everybody else is taking a very like, what about the beauty of life, and what about suffering
Yeah,
producing good things? I get your point there,
it's an
but
important question for sure.
at one point, I think it's the easiest question to steel man your argument. It's probably the easiest question to like kind of like not get around to address, let's say. But in my hypothetical, where I'm the last person and I've chosen, because I think one of your claims, which I think is I don't agree with it, but I can understand it, is that like this life was forced upon me. But I'm already here now, and I can make a rational decision to stay or not. And I've tried to strip away everything, other external forms of, I'm not going to have kids because I'm not going to continue that line of suffering. You've already taken animals and wildlife. I guess I'll take all my bird feeders down and my birdhouse. That would be sad, but I'm not going to suffer. It's not suffering. Please don't push the button. It's not suffering. I'm just sad. But the very fact that even though I'm the last person, I'm not going to die of a slow death from preventable things. There are unpreventable external forces of me just taking a stroll into Pike National Forest, the 26 acres that you've cordoned me off in, which I'm totally fine with. That's all I need. But part of it goes into Pike National Forest. I could trip over a log and suffer, and you're going to remove my agency, even though I'm the last person.
So
You'll
the
remove
thing
my
is, right,
agency.
in your hypothetical, in your scenario, that you don't have 100% safety from suffering, right?
Yeah, no, but I'm fine with that. I'm
So
choosing.
here's why.
Can I
Here's
choose
why.
to suffer? Can I choose to suffer?
Here's why we wouldn't respect that choice. Okay.
Okay.
So as I was saying about optimism bias, people make optimistic choices like the one that you're suggesting, and it causes and allows suffering. Now, the thing is, most of the time this suffering happens, it's because it wasn't actually considered by the person that's allowed it, right? So you have a child and they just get tortured to death. It's not
100%.
it's not something you considered, and that's why it happened. Okay, and so in the same sense, most people don't consider all of the potential dangers, right? And if they did, then they would probably prefer non-existence immediately.
How can you know that?
Because we've looked into it. Basically, we are scientists researching this, very thoroughly. This is our bread and butter.
So you're saying I could throw a ton of hypotheticals and say, you know what, maybe you, Jarrett, would choose to. There's somebody who said I'm riding the wave of my theology. I absolutely, or my not theology, ideology. I am absolutely coming to this blind, just asking questions. I have no dog in this fight. So forgive me. I really am. I really have no. Anyway. So you're saying that there's something out there that you could present to me as a well, what if this happened to you? Okay, so I'm sorry. So my hypothetical was I go for a walk. I have all the food I need. I have all the water I need. I go for a walk, but I trip over a log, and I slowly, over the next 3 days, experience intense pain, hallucinations, and I die. And I'm saying I'm okay with that. You're saying, but you could present to me something else where I would absolutely say, oh, you're right. I didn't think of that. Push the button.
Well, firstly, yes, probably, and secondly, even tripping over the rock and stuff, it's still optimism bias, which twists and warps our perception of dangers. So when we're considering, surviving, it biases our, thought process and essentially massively downplays and minimizes all of the actual risks involved. And this is something that all life has because nature forced it upon us in order to achieve propagation of species, survival, and
Nature isn't
reproduction.
really an active actor, right? Like these are just, you say forced upon you. I don't know if you could give
Well, I'm
nature an
anthropomorphizing it,
objective.
but yeah,
Sorry, your mic cut out.
I'm anthropomorphizing it, but yeah.
But yeah, isn't that a little hand wavy?
I mean, it's just a turn of phrase, really.
But I get when there's a conscientious agent causing suffering or not reducing suffering or eliminating suffering, then I get you there. But when you anthropomorphize nature to say like, oh well, it forced us into this pattern, I don't know if I'd necessarily agree with that framing. I understand the idea,
obviously
but
true, right? It's obvious, right?
this is brute fact.
I mean, I can explain it if you want. Animals wouldn't have survived very long if they felt guilty eating other animals. They wouldn't have survived very long if they felt, if they questioned whether or not they should reproduce, right? So all of these important harm and empathy related decisions were completely nerfed and suppressed because they went directly against survival and reproduction. And
Okay. I get your point. I don't want to split hairs on the anthropomorphizing nature.
But,
I get your point.
just to wrap up, because it's been going on for a while.
Yes, sir.
All life, including humans, don't fully consider the risks of their decisions, okay? They're prioritizing their survival at the expense of all of these risks, but they don't even think about all of the risks. So we don't really value consent in that sense, and we do think that humans and creatures are irrational. So, they're not thinking about everything. They're not considering all of the context and possibilities, and they're not the ones trying to make, to be the ultimate decision maker, to be the.
Well, then are you irrational? Are you irrational in not considering all the outcomes of total extinction? Or are you just like beelining it towards this is the end goal I want to achieve, and this is the best way to do it? Everything else be damned. I'm not going to think about consequences, or the consequences are relevant because because eliminating all suffering is such a great and noble endeavor.
What consequences could there be that's worse than?
I don't know. I'm an irrational human being who is, and so are you. So we couldn't possibly know that. But we are certainly willing to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Apparently, we're that rational. We're that rational enough. Okay, sorry. We're willing to end it all. I won't use an idiom. But we're willing to end it all. The greatest cosmic accident that's ever occurred. We're willing to end it all.
The most tragic.
But okay, we're willing to do that. But you also say that we have to do that because we are irrational and we can't make decisions.
The thing is, Jarrett, if that is your name.
Yes, you can look me up, jarrettgreen.com. I'm just a software engineer. I'm nobody.
But the thing is that we sit in our comfortable houses,
yes,
our fridges, and we somehow think it's okay to condemn others to suffer while we're sitting in a place of privilege and comfort and not even knowing what that suffering feels like, okay?
100%. I agree.
So that's a bad thing, right? But basically... Yes. What I'm trying to say is that people like us and humans are a tiny minority on this planet. We are the privileged ones, okay? So everyone else is effectively being sent to hell, okay? So that's what extinctionism is about. It's about making sure that no one else gets sent to hell.
A living hell.
For most life born on this planet, it is a living hell.
A living hell. Sure. Okay. Well, I've taken up too much of your time. This has been fun to kick around. I appreciate the discussion.
Yeah, me too. Great questions. Thank you for coming on. Maybe come on another time. And please give me a follow if you'd like. Okay, moving on. I know we've got quite a big queue. So let's dive on in. Okay. Maybe someone else. Here we go. Hello.
Hi, hello. My name is Sebastian.
Hi.
So, firstly, could you explain more, elaborate more, like what's your plan of total extinction? It sounds like, like at the first glance, you sound like a crazy people to me and to most of the listeners probably. So how would you like to murder everything in the space, in the universe?
Well, we're against murder. Murder is actually going to happen in much greater numbers if we don't have extinction. So we actually prefer euthanasia. the only way to make sure that no more life forced into unsafe and unfair conditions, basically.
So euthanasia of what? Of what? Only people, or you know that at some point, even if you kill everyone, euthanize everyone on the planet of Earth, there will be some life or XYZ planets far, far away from us. So you will only
way ahead of you, Sebastian. We want to have total animal extinction on Earth. Sorry, your microphone's really echoey. We want to have total animal extinction, then total universe extinction, and the main part of our mission is preventing life from coming back or from developing in the first place. Especially in the universe, most of the planets we come across are probably not going to have life yet, but have the potential for it. So preventing it from coming about, that's probably going to be the biggest part of it. And then finally, humans can be the last ones to go extinct.
Okay, I took headphones. So, what's your plan to prevent making of life in like other planets? We can't even like colonize Mars. We barely landed on the moon, and you want to sterilize the whole life in other planets? How? It's impossible.
It's not impossible. It might be impossible today, but the thing is, extinction would have been very impossible 1,000 years ago. Today, animal extinction is very possible. And, every day going forward, extinction gets easier, technology and science develop and advance. So, yeah, it could take thousands of years or more. But, if we're going to suffer less than we're preventing, then it's the right thing to do.
But where does your strong feeling of being a savior that wants to end all the suffering comes from? For me, it's like some kind of schizophrenical messianism of some people. This is a symptom of some illness, mental illness. And what makes you like? Where does this strong feeling to be galaxy messiah comes from in your case?
So I think everyone has a sense of right and wrong, moral obligation, social obligation, duty, collective obligation. Basically, this is just our empathetic and moral obligation. It's not about being a galactic hero or anything. It's just, are you on the side of the victims or are you on the side of the oppressors? If you're on the side of the victims, then you would want them to not be forced to exist and suffer terribly.
But what makes you like why do you even feel that you can decide on behalf of everyone? Maybe you are the one wrong and you are living in complete delusion.
Well, because it's the thing is, it's not really questionable, or there's no confusion about whether or not we are right or wrong. It's obvious that allowing others to suffer is wrong. It's obvious that making others suffer is wrong. It's obvious that exploiting others in a cruel way is wrong, right? Now, you have people that say, can you prove it's wrong? But, I'm not the crazy one. If the person saying, can you prove that torturing a child to death is wrong, they're the crazy one.
No, it's obviously wrong, but not everyone is planning to be some kind of hero that will end all the suffering. It's firstly impossible. Secondly, it sounds crazy. And where does it even come from? What's your background? Probably some reincarnation beliefs or
No, I'm an atheist.
Okay, I'm atheist too, but like for me it's crazy. Like why do you even care so much about it? Like, this will happen, and if not suffering, then you wouldn't be here. Like, it's the part of life. Without suffering, without death, there can't be
It's
life.
about moral consistency. That's a big part. It's about understanding that it is possible. You said it's not possible. It's about wanting a good world, the best world, to be on the right side of history, to be on the right team. If you're asked to vote for a political party, I could say, well, why waste your time voting? Okay. Now, I would say that doing activism for Extinction is a much better use of time than voting. But even if you have your own individual life, you can still be important to send that vote to a political party, right? So there's still things that you can do. You can still be on the right side, the right team. But yeah, I guess to answer your question more, a lot of it is about empathy. Consistency. If we know that this is the right thing to do, it's the ethical and moral thing to do, and that it is possible, and that we can work towards it, and it's necessary to work towards it, then I would be a hypocrite if I didn't, basically.
Yes, everyone has empathy, but and they want to be like less and less suffering. But what you are talking about is like some crazy level of empathy. That's completely crazy level of empathy. That's how to say it. It's far right empathy. That's the end point. Like it's some kind of illness, I think. Like, you can be normal person with empathy, and you want to others to suffer less, but if you want to destroy whole world because you think you are right and you are only right and it's the only good thing to do, it's mental illness for
the world because I think I'm right. It's not about wanting to see the world burn. It's very simple. It's nobody should have to suffer. We should have a suffering-free world. We should have a world with no victims and no suffering. I think everyone, should agree to that.
Yes, and your solution is to
prevent it.
Quote euthanize, so murder everything, and that's the solution.
There is no other solution, though. We've looked into it.
So, okay, so yeah, that might be the only solution. But what makes it really good? Like, why? I don't get it. Like, it's crazy.
It's as simple as wanting there to be no victims being tortured, right? It's as easy as that.
Yes. So there will be nothing. Like, and
there will be no assault. There will be no rape. There will be no exploitation. No torture. No disease.
Yeah, there will be no life.
No babies getting cancer. No babies being eaten alive. Nobody starving to death. No war.
Okay, but there will be no one. There will be no one to experience suffering, to experience good things.
Exactly. There will be no one to suffer.
Absolutely blank space.
There will be no one to suffer.
And a world without suffering and without life is better than a world with good things, love, and suffering for you?
The thing is, there's nothing that can justify babies being tortured to death, right? Children.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so there's nothing. That's what you need to understand. There is nothing that can justify that. Literally nothing. So having life and having existence, that's just a biological survival instinct, right? It's not actual logic or reason. It's just fear of the unknown. But yeah, there's nothing that can justify anyone being made to suffer. Anyone being forced into a life that they didn't ask for, didn't want, and then they just get tortured. Right? Nothing justifies.
Okay, so what's your short-term plan for your organization?
So the short-term plan.
Let's say next 20 years.
We want to grow the movement as much as possible, get as many new activists on board as we can, grow, develop the movement, get more resources. I've recently made the website. We've got a podcast with 23 episodes now. We're getting more resources out there. We have dozens of social media channels. We have lots of activists. We're doing protests. So yeah, we want to get more awareness. We want to grow the movement. Every step that we take to grow the movement and develop it gets us closer to achieving the goals. And in the meantime, we are also doing lots of the actual science for extinction. So,
and you are very optimistic if you think you will make more than 0.0001% of population to believe in your movement, because at some point people are normal beings and they don't like radical thinkers, especially if the radical thinkers wants to murder everyone. And at some point, if you overheat this narrative, probably someone will take care of your organizations, and that would be the final. I think.
There's lots of risks involved, but that's not going to stop us from trying to do the right thing, basically.
Yeah, I understand your point.
And in terms of, no one's going to agree with it, well, more people agree with it every day, and we are actually working on some solutions to the problem of people not agreeing with it. We might actually be able to do something about that. And if we have the most motivation out of anyone in the world. We have billions of years of torture victims depending directly on us. Okay, so most people, their decision is, what pizza am I going to order tonight? What film am I going to watch on Netflix? We, however, have people and animals and babies being tortured relying on us, so we're responsible for that. That gives us.
So why do you even continue with your life? Like, you would already commit suicide. You know what? If not the inner mission that you have.
If I were to pass away, then there would be less help for the movement and less help for the victims and the suffering.
Yeah, and that's the only one thing that keeps you alive right now.
I don't know. I mean, I think everyone's got reasons to live. They've got their survival instincts. They've got the fear of.
Yeah, but while are you living, you are helping other beings to suffer. You kill animals even by accident.
In order to end suffering, right? Police officer has to tackle a criminal and cause him some suffering, right?
Okay, so that's only one thing that's keeping you alive. It's your
Well, what does it matter, though, Sebastian? Why are you asking personal questions?
Because
curiosity.
Excuse me, I think you have some mental illness. Like, have you been diagnosed with?
Okay, but you're the one who hasn't had a single counter argument against my perfect argumentation, right? So there's nothing that I'm saying that you can say, wow, that is crazy, and it's obviously crazy, right? Nothing.
You will ask 99.99% of populations about your idea, and I think all of them will say you that you are crazy and that's wrong.
I agree. Most people will say that, right? But society changes over time, okay? As human history has gone on, they've become more concerned about ethics and rights and equality, equal pay for women, voting rights for women, veganism, vegetarianism, all this stuff, right? It's becoming more popular. And that's part of the reason why Extinction is now a movement as well. It's because of that pressure to do the right thing and to do good things.
So how you will get rid of animals? What's your plan?
Euthanasia, right?
How?
We don't
You
know.
have cow.
Yeah. So, I mean, part of our mission is to develop the best ways to do it, okay? But we already have euthanasia, so that's already one thing that is possible. But applying that to a mass scale might be a bit difficult. Applying it to different species might be a bit difficult. So yeah, we need to do the science. There isn't a laboratory studying how to perform extinction today, but eventually we might be able to make one.
And you think that you will have most of people believe you and agree with your point of view, and have them to agree to kill, basically murder every living organism. You won't make most of the population to agree with that.
So that's a good question. So that is our biggest problem, our biggest obstacle and challenge. But as I was saying earlier about our motivation, if anyone's going to achieve solving that problem, it's going to be us, because we have more motivation and responsibility than anyone else. So in order to solve that problem, we might need to manipulate genetics, which is something that we're already doing. We're trying to get more empathetic genetics out into the population. We can also develop the messaging. We can also take power, for example. Most social movements and changes in history revolved around a very small population. Only maybe 1% of the population would come out into the streets and march and protest or overthrow the government. 99% of everyone else was home. So, it actually only takes a small number of really motivated people to achieve a big change.
You know that at some point of our life in future, your organization will be considered as terroristic organization, and probably, you will be thrown into the jail or.
Well, like I said, we're selfless people. So even if there was only a 10% chance that we would succeed, we would still do it and still, take the risk to ourselves for those that need it.
Okay, thanks for discussion, and I hope you won't succeed.
Okay, thanks for the question, Sebastian. Good chat. All right, do we have anybody else? The queue is looking. The queue is starving, guys. The queue is starving. We need someone in the queue. In the meantime, we will answer the chat comments. Who's got a good comment? Let's have a look. Why did you drop me? Because you were trolling. You drink the Kool-Aid. I mean, if it comes down to it, right, and we have to euthanize you, old MacDonald, if Kool-Aid is your preferred form of euthanasia, I mean, that can be arranged. Okay? Now, we'd have to make sure you drink all of it and maybe massage it down. But, okay. Even if you wiped out all life, you wouldn't prevent future life. As I was saying, prevention is the biggest part of our movement. It's very easy to have, if we can have animal extinction within 100 years, yes, if it redevelops and comes back, it would suffer for billions of more years, right? So that is absolutely something that we're aware of, and it's an absolute priority. Eliminating suffering, causing extinction on Earth, yes, that's eliminating suffering, but the risk of suffering is just as important as actual suffering that does exist today. And yeah, we're extremely aware of that. But thanks for bringing it up. It's impossible unless you have enough energy to completely destroy the Earth's core. Yeah, it's an interesting question. Can you achieve total extinction on Earth without, or any planet for that matter, without effectively destroying the planet? We don't know for sure, right? We don't know for sure. It would take a lot of bleach. However, what we do know is that we can absolutely euthanize most of the animals on the planet, if not all of them, probably all of them. Now, bacteria and stuff like that, and you've got very small insects. That's going to be very challenging. We would want to have no plant life as well, because that increases the chances of life evolving and stuff like that. So to have a completely sterile planet, yeah, it's going to be challenging for sure. Maybe, you would need to throw the planet into the sun or something like that. Radiation is also another possible way that it could work. There are types of radiation that prevent life, basically. So that's a possibility. Maybe we could have robots that keep an eye out for life developing and put a stop to it. But the point is that we can already definitely have total animal extinction on Earth or very close to it. Maybe some bacteria lying around. So that's already a good thing, okay? The people that say that, our movement is invalid just because we might not be able to reach the ends of the universe, they're wrong, okay? Just because the universe might be really big doesn't mean that we can't end animal suffering on Earth. We can absolutely have animal extinction on Earth. It's already quite possible. And it gets easier every day that AI and science and technology advances. And obviously, if extinctionists started opening serious laboratories to study extinction, then, finally we would actually have science working on extinction instead of just relying on existing science, okay? So, yeah, the people that say that extinction would be difficult, I agree, right? Overthrowing the pro-suffering society will be difficult. We have lots of challenges. That's all part of the fun, right? It's a shame that these challenges exist for the sake of the victims, obviously. But, yes, these are big challenges, and we're willing to take them on. All right.
What's up, guy?
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, so I think my biggest issue there is if the objective statement trying to make is that all suffering is bad, so the objective is to end all suffering, you are going to fail once you unalive everything on the planet, because life will come back.
Okay, but it can be prevented from coming back.
How would you prevent all life from coming back? On this planet or other planets?
All planets, yeah. Well, you just have to try, basically.
Yeah, so we can eliminate all suffering with everything living by just trying. Why don't we do that instead?
Because that's a completely impossible thing, and that's been proven. Whereas
that you can eliminate suffering, which is pain receptors?
Yeah, so pain receptors isn't the only form of suffering. You have emotional suffering.
If you can't feel any pain, or emotional as well, you can disassociate with any pain emotion as well if you do lobotomies. So why is that not preventable, except for extinction?
Extinction is much faster, right? So there's no way to provide 100% guarantee of any form of safety, right, without extinction. If I have an animal in front of me, I can't realistically make it immortal, immune to every single disease, accurately turn off its pain receptors in 100% of cases, despite differences between individuals and genetics and species, right? Euthanasia is something that we already do. It's something we can already do on a large scale, whereas turning every last ant into the Hulk, is much more unrealistic.
I don't know why we're turning every ant into the Hulk, but main point being is if you unalive everything now, then all of the progress you made so far into making less suffering is now disappeared. So we go right back to square one of evolution, starting back from RNA chains back up to the animals that eat each other, and then we're right back to humans again, or some form of humans that are then suffering again. So you basically repeat the cycle that is getting us to the point where we're technologically advanced to then have solutions like disabling pain receptors, and you get rid of all that progress and put us back to square one. So you are actually actively increasing suffering by what you're doing.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about, to be honest. I don't know what you're talking about, because
break it down. We have progressed in science and technology to a point where we can start changing DNA and reducing suffering in things which can be spread through like diseases and stuff. So we can actively change how pain is received, if not at all. But we want to delete all of that progress by extincting everything, letting life rebuild itself from square one, and have all those millions of years of suffering instead of the progress that we're making right now that we could be maybe 1,000 years away from finishing suffering off. So you're actually a suffering terrorist.
No, so you've got it all wrong, basically. In your scenario that you were describing, we would be advocating for an immediate human extinction, but that's not the case, okay? So, you know, we want humanity to survive for as long as it takes, as long as necessary, okay? So we're not talking about wiping out human progress in that sense. We're simply talking about putting all of that human progress to good use, to, instead of prioritizing pleasure, prioritizing safety and protecting those who need it. And in terms of life coming back, that's the main part of our mission. It's not difficult to prevent life from coming back, actually. And every day that goes forward, it gets easier to do so. I think it would be arrogant to say that we could have total animal extinction on Earth, which is pretty realistic already, and then to say that it would somehow be completely impossible to prevent, you know, billions of animals springing forth, right? If we can do animal extinction, then we can definitely prevent animals coming back, right? But even if we can't guarantee it at this present moment, the point of our movement is to try and make it possible, right? Because it's definitely not something that's you know, hypothetically impossible. It's not something we can rule out as being impossible. In fact, it seems more than likely very realistic and possible.
I don't see how extincting Earth is going to extinct the entirety of the universe, which suffering will continue to exist in. However, if we do have the ability to eliminate suffering through...
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I think, you know, you have to be a crazy person to think that that's what I'm calling for. Obviously, making animals extinct on Earth won't make the universe extinct, Matt. You know, is something wrong with you? You know, are you not giving me any benefit of the doubt here? What are you talking about? What's wrong with you? You're suggesting something insane. Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Good, thank you.
So can you like just elaborate a little bit, like a brief summary on what total extinction would be, I guess?
Yeah, so we want total animal extinction on Earth, as much of the universe to be sterilized as possible, and then finally humans can go extinct as the only ones that can cause extinction. Humans have to go last, and if we don't do this, then we're condemning others to suffer, which is wrong, it's unfair and unnecessary, and we shouldn't prioritize pleasure and privilege over the sufferers and the victims, right? So unless you have total extinction, you're going to have a new generation of victims and sufferers who didn't ask to be born, who didn't ask for this life, and now they're just being tortured, and they would have been much better off not being forced into it. So it's our moral obligation.
Like under what moral standard, though, are you attesting to, I guess?
Well, you see, for most life born into the world, they're effectively born into hell, because most life here gets essentially a terrible life and a terrible death as well. So it's really just preventing innocence from being forced into hell. That should be our priority.
Are these animals that are experiencing this so-called hell, are they viewing it as hell also, or are you just using your own sense perception and applying
I
it
don't
to?
think they know of the linguistic term hell. Probably
Well, not even
not.
linguistic, just a
They
perception of reality.
probably don't speak English, Coop, okay? They probably don't speak English, but they can definitely suffer a lot.
So you think these animals can like conceptualize some like all bad damnation that they're experiencing? You think they concept?
Well, like I said, to the last guest, you're suggesting something insane. You're suggesting that animals speak English, that they have a concept of damnation or something. No, obviously not. Okay? If you think that's what I'm suggesting, then your interpretation is damaged, defective. I would say it's... no, I'm not suggesting that, Coop. You didn't hear me, obviously. I said that they are effectively born into hell, okay? They're born into, a prison of life that they can't escape. They're being tortured constantly. That is effectively hell, right? It's extreme suffering that you can't escape, and the escape at the end is a cruel death as well in most cases. So I think hell is actually a very good way to describe it. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in hell, but I can certainly use terms like evil and hell to good use. And people just, have these pathetic comebacks trying to say that, oh, well, that's ironic. You're sounding religious. No, you're sounding dumb by not understanding simple use of language, right? You don't have to be a religious person to say, wow, what that guy did was evil, right? Or, wow, she must be, suffering hell right now. It's language, guys. Don't be so well, I'm not going to say it, but, don't be so that. All right, the queue is currently effectively empty. Now, I know the queue's not actually empty, guys, but the 3 people in the queue are so that it's effectively empty. So if you're saying that I'm saying the queue is actually empty, then you have something seriously wrong with your brain. Okay? Do you get it now? Right. While we wait for someone to join the queue, we shall monologue boringly about... No, we'll try and think of something interesting to discuss. So, veganism. Veganism causes more and worse suffering than non-veganism. The ratio of land use for veganism compared to non-vegan food agriculture is 1/5. Veganism uses 1/5 of the space, whereas animal agriculture not only uses more space, but it also sort of wipes out space. So it's using more than 5 times, actually. So it causes things like deforestation, which is a good thing because it prevents wild animals from being forced to exist and suffer in that space. That's a space of suffering that is no longer a space of suffering. So the amount of wild animals that are prevented from existing and suffering due to non-vegan food agriculture is extremely significant and beneficial. Furthermore, farmed animals have much, much better conditions than wild animals. So in the same space being occupied for farm animal agriculture, if there were wild animals there, they would have worse conditions. And it's actually quite easy to think about. You wouldn't want to be a wild animal. You would definitely prefer to be a farmed animal because you've got reliable food that's just given to you. You've got shelter. You're not freezing to death. You've got heating, okay? You've got safety. You're not being chased by murderous animals all day, every day, terrified and running for your life, all right? You've got medicine, Okay, you've got literal veterinarians who will look after you. Not all the time, but you know, to some extent, right? You've got euthanasia, which means that you don't have to be eaten alive or, you know, die painfully from diseases and starvation and freezing to death over the course of several days. You know, it's just a cruel way to die. So farmed animals actually have it way better than wild animals, and that's why essentially it's bad to be vegan. Now, if we had no animals on Earth, and you know the suffering wasn't being transferred to wild animals, then veganism would be the gold standard, absolutely. But at the minute, it actually causes more suffering and worse suffering. Antinatalism also does the same thing. For every human that you prevent from existing, you're condemning wild animals to suffer instead, because humans take up massive amounts of land. For every human that exists, some farmland will be dedicated to you, factory land, data center land, all sorts of things, urbanization land, your house, right? So for every human that exists, you're in good conditions, relatively speaking, and you're preventing potentially millions of wild animals over your lifetime from being forced to exist and to suffer. So that's a good thing. He's yapping. His old argument is to just which he can't actually do. That sounds like you're yapping, to be honest, Matt. Like, it's garbage. Do better. You could just turn off the pain receptors. No, that's not a thing, actually. There are people, and there's videos on YouTube, there's people that have been born without pain receptors, and they have no quality of life. They go blind because they don't realize that they're scratching out their eyes. They get infections everywhere. They get burns. They get cuts. You know, they're constantly bleeding. They're constantly breaking bones without realizing it. I think, to be honest, if you suggested to me, if you offered it to me or forced it on me, not having pain receptors, death would absolutely be a mercy compared to that. Trying to survive and, do your housework while you can't really feel anything properly, it would just be a nightmare. Just an absolute nightmare. You'd be walking down the street and you'd just fall over because you've stepped or tripped on something that you couldn't feel. It'd be awful. And yeah, the thing, and another reason why the pain receptor method doesn't work is that you can't realistically apply that to every living animal, right? How are you seriously going to genetically modify every animal that's currently out there, or even their next generations, right? So you can't. Euthanasia and extinction is already very practical and feasible and possible. It's something we already do. So inventing some sort of impossible and actually harmful pain receptor thing for millions and billions of different types of species of animals as well, it's just extremely unrealistic. It's cruel as well. Again, these animals didn't ask to be born into a life of misery and terrible circumstances. You wouldn't want to be an animal. Nobody should have to be an animal, right? So you're essentially talking about just keeping them imprisoned in that terrible experience, and now with a disability on top. So no, pain receptors are definitely not a good thing to go down. You've floundered, buddy. I've curved you at every step. To be honest, I am in awe of your defense mechanisms, Matt. There is absolutely no logic to anything that you've said, and the fact that you think there is truly a testament to human stupidity. All right, let's have Jarrett back.
Yes, I'm in. I want to do this. You've sold me. I'm worried, though, that you're only thinking about Earth. So I want to really figure out how we can make sure that life doesn't happen anywhere else and how we're going to do that. I don't want to just end suffering on Earth. I think we can do that. I don't know how we're going to do that. It seems far off, but I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust your science that we have the ability to do that. But the universe is so big, and we have to stick around for as long as possible because we don't know, even in just our galaxy, maybe the Milky Way, that we don't have like 1,000 other neighbors where some form of life, maybe not a sentient form that looks like us, but some form of life is suffering. So how are we going to get there? This is the only point. Like I'll sign up for the newsletter. I'll pay my dues. You tell me where to send a check. It'll be in USD. I hope you can do the conversions. How do we get the universe? How do we do this?
So it's we absolutely want to do the universe. So don't worry.
We have to. Otherwise, this is moot, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, the thing is, it's like everything with the pro-extinction movement. We have to sort of work towards it. We have to create it, right? And we just have to do our best. We can't say to you now, Jarrett, we're going to use an XYZ rocket. We're going to equip it with this. It's going to, do a slingshot around the moon. Then it's going to fly. We don't.
Yeah, I don't think I need that. I don't think I need that amount of specific. I don't need orbital mechanics. My question is, though, like, the best way to get this done is as fast as possible. But you know what I mean? Like, otherwise, we're just gonna cause suffering immense suffering in the meantime. You could maybe theoretically somehow unalive all animal life tomorrow, let's say. But we're not ready to tackle the universe yet. So you've eliminated animal suffering, but isn't that going to increase suffering somewhere else? And now we're just like have these thresholds of suffering that we're trying to balance, and like, probably we shouldn't have done the animals first because that increased human suffering. We're actually like 10,000 years out before we can tackle the universe. And maybe there's like an alien life out there that we're gonna have to get into a war into because they're not gonna want to, maybe they're not on board with this yet. So now we're gonna increase suffering in that way. So how do we do this without causing like this causal chain of immense suffering like nothing has ever been seen before?
Well, when you say nothing's ever been seen before, it already exists, right? So it's.
Well, I mean, you can increase it, right? Like, is there a way that you could increase this by accident, or in the meantime, to as a means to an end, and the suffering will increase?
It's really impossible to make suffering any worse than it already is. You'd have to.
Oh, I don't think that's true. If you eliminated all animals tomorrow, if you did this poorly, if you're a bad project manager, you eliminated all animal life tomorrow. Well, we're now going to starve, and we aren't all starving currently. Yeah, so that's an increase.
We would have to remove our dependency on animals while
first.
Not necessarily first, maybe at the same time, like potentially at the same time, because there's a lot of animals that we don't depend on at the minute that we can make extinct already.
The biosphere is we don't know. That's a tug at a thread on a sweater that you don't know how it's going to unravel. You could say like, oh, this beetle over here is actually inconsequential, and then unalive it, and then go, oh, you know what? We didn't actually know the science. That beetle was incredibly crucial to the ecosystem. Shoot. And now we don't have corn.
Yeah. So the thing is, like, all of these questions are great questions. But
I want to help out.
But the reason why we haven't, thought of elaborate answers to every single last question is because that would be an infinite and impossible task. There's so many questions that you could ask about extinction, but really there's no point spending time on it until we sort of have to, right? At the minute, the only thing that makes sense is growing the movement and getting activists on board. Now, we are trying to answer some of these questions, but
aren't you going to have to answer these? I'm going to be an activist. I'm going to get on board. These are the kind of questions that I want to know, like pragmatic questions, like how are we going to do this without increasing suffering?
Yeah. Okay.
Like if you want to grow the movement, we got to figure this out. I need a good 15-point plan of here's how this is going to work, and we're not going to increase suffering in the meantime. And it can be broad strokes.
Yeah, you can't really commit to a 15-point plan because we can't predict what the future's going to look like.
Five maybe. What comes first?
I mean, the thing is, think about it. AI, for example, is going to transform the world. 5 years from now, this conversation will probably be completely irrelevant, right? Technology will be on such a different level 5, 10, 15 years from now that all of our sort of assumptions about science and what's possible, what's easy to do, what's not, are going to be so different. So there's no point committing to, how are we going to do cosmic extinction with our current technology? How are we going to have animal extinction with technology that we haven't built yet? Right? The point is we have to develop.
From a moral standpoint, though, wouldn't you have to have this completely laid out with all variables accounted for? But no. Tell me how that.
When I joined the movement, I didn't ask for all of this. It was simply, oh, right, nobody should have to suffer. Yeah, let's
100%.
Suffering-free world. Sounds great. Yep. How do I help? Right? That was it.
How do we do it without increasing suffering? How do we do it though? And also in the meantime, can we reduce harm? Can we reduce suffering in the meantime? Or is that just like we're gonna fix it in the end, why bother?
I guess it's a question of efficiently spending your time, really. But
well, we have to eventually get to how to undo the universe. So that seems like that's going to take a while.
Yeah.
So efficiency here is there's an immediacy over efficiency, I guess.
What do you mean?
If we're very far off, let's even say conservatively 1,000 years from being able to undo the universe. Whatever, however we do it. Let's just, Laplace's demon's real. We know the quantum wave for everything. We can figure this out. We know what string to pull that could like decollapse this whole thing. We'll figure it out. Let's say 1,000 years. Now, I think it's impossible, but 1,000 years. In the meantime, there's still suffering. And we can, from an empathetic standpoint, it can't be just, well, it's all or none. I'm only going to be working towards reducing all suffering and not worry about the like little suffering that goes along. You keep bringing up baby torture. Some babies are going to get tortured, but I'm not worrying about that right now. What I'm going to worry about is like, this will never happen again. You just have to give me 1,000 years. What do we do in the meantime?
But you see, it's not about waiting around and sitting on your hands for 1,000 years.
I'm not. I'm not a scientist. I can't contribute to like, we have to undo the universe. I'm with you on that. We have to, or otherwise this is all for naught. But in the meantime, there is suffering and I want to reduce it. So are we cool with just like trying to like, go to idealist utopia along the way?
Yeah.
Okay. So what happens? So do you believe at all in this experiment? Do you believe in all that this can be achieved without increasing suffering? I think I already asked you that. I think you said yes, which
the thing is,
I guess
right? If we don't do animal extinction on Earth, they're going to suffer for billions of years more, at least billions, right? That's an insanely long time. Most people don't really fully appreciate just how long that is, right?
It's a long time. I get it. Yeah.
The amount of suffering that you're preventing is insane. So even if we had to torture every single life form on Earth horrifically, even if we had to torture every human and every animal for 1,000 years, and it's the worst suffering that's ever existed, it would still be preferential to the alternative.
To the billions of years. So the ends do justify your means. Is all suffering the same? If I step on an ant versus torturing, I don't. That's such a bummer thing to say. Versus a slow cancerous death, also a bummer thing to say, but less bummery, I guess. Are they equivocal in your mind? All suffering is suffering, or there are degrees?
There's degrees, definitely. It's like a spectrum, I think.
Is there preferential? Do you hold human suffering above animal suffering? I guess is probably the easier way to get to that question.
No.
Okay. So torturing a gerbil and torturing a human, a conscious human, same to you. Which is fine. This is not a gotcha at all. I'm just trying to figure out the parameters of what we're talking about.
It's a legit question. It's a good question. So I don't know the answer, right? It might be that a human would suffer worse. But in terms of current suffering, I can tell you that most animals get eaten alive. Most humans don't, right? So I would say that even if humans can suffer worse, we don't.
I told you I live in the mountains. We have a mountain lion in our area. They're very territorial, so we're in his territory. And you know how cats will bring you, I wish I had a picture. You know how cats will bring you like a dead bird, and it was obvious like they have a weird like, I'm not killing this to eat it. I'm just killing it because funsies, I guess. I don't know why they do it. Well, this mountain lion brings me pieces of mule deer. I have a foot outside my door 3 days ago. I'm sure that mule deer suffered quite a bit. It's probably not a great way to go. So I get you on that. But the mule deer also probably didn't contemplate. It doesn't have the ability, I guess, maybe to contemplate its own existence and what like it truly means.
It might do. The thing is,
it might do. But I don't know. So
I would put it down to survival instinct and fear, right? Most people that are being murdered, they're probably not calmly, rationally.
You're right. No,
it's
that's probably a bad analogy on my part.
Instinctive thing. You're terrified. You're panicking.
You go fight or flight. No, you're probably right. I still think that like until we have this all again, I'm in. I want to do this. This is the best way. But until we can figure out how to undo the universe and do this without causing suffering along the way, that I don't think I'm in. Like I'm really empathetic. I don't want any suffering, just like you.
Got it the wrong way around, right?
Okay, tell me.
The point of the movement is to go and figure that out. So you can't figure that out without trying to figure it out.
Is it at the expense of current suffering though? Like, are you, that's my, okay, maybe I'll spin off my own movement that like we want total extinction, but we're also, and we're going to work towards it. We're going to figure it out. We're going to figure out how to undo the universe. But in the meantime, we're going to try to reduce suffering on Earth as humanly as we possibly can, because it's going to be a long while, and it would be unethical for me to be only focused on complete annihilation without saying like, well, this suffering is okay because in the end, I'm gonna the quantifiable amount of suffering will be over. So I'll take a bump in suffering for a little while, a bump in suffering that has never been experienced before by the most people and by the most things. I'm willing to take that because at the end of the day, there will be no more suffering once we undo the universe, because that's a far out goal, man. Like, that's going to take us a while to figure out, right? Universe is pretty big.
But if you really
lot of suffering in the universe
doing that now, though, right? Is that the right time to do it?
Yes, the right time was yesterday. I'm with you on that. We should have been figuring out how to undo the universe yesterday. So today's the best day, but there's a ton of suffering.
We are actually working on that already.
Tell me how. Okay, you keep saying this, so tell me how you're working on it.
Well,
in a practical, non-theoretical sort of.
Most of the working on it isn't related to destroying the universe, but that is something we are working on.
Okay, you are working on destroying the universe. Good.
So it's called vacuum decay theory, right? So if you want to find out more about it, Google vacuum decay, and essentially it's about causing the universe to. I don't know exactly how it works, but it would destroy the universe.
We have to know how it works. We can't have any sort of outliers here. That scares me. Like, what if we get it wrong and we end up like? Don't you have to have it so perfectly ready to go before you press the big red button? I think you mentioned you call it the big red button. Like, if you can't guarantee it, then it would be absolutely immoral to press the big red button.
Yeah, you need to be as sure as you can be, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we have to kind of like have the universe mapped out. Maybe we need to know if we're alone. We need to know if if we're going to cause wars, intergalactic wars with other entities. I guess so. Like, I don't know. Like, because I don't think the Earth is just enough. Like, we need to. There are Sagittarian chipmunks that are being eaten, whatever their version of chipmunks are. They're being eaten by whatever their version of mountain lions
Well,
are.
I can tell you
We
this,
gotta.
Garrett, that during our research, we came across someone called Jeremy England, and he is a space, astronomer, whatever you want to call it. And
Mhm.
effectively, his research shows that it's actually very likely that the universe will be teeming with life.
Yeah.
And his theory and his model is that essentially the sunlight that lands on the surface of a planet, the surface and the material it comes down on has to dissipate and distribute that heat, and effectively having life develop or sort of life it essentially develops as part of that heat distribution, because life is one of the most effective ways of distributing heat and energy. So in his theory, you would find planets full of life and forests and jungles and everything.
We
And
gotta get rid of them.
and there's really good sort of logic and science behind it if you want to read about it. So
No,
yeah,
I believe it, but we have to get rid of it. So I'm trying to figure out how we're going to do that.
well, I would say that we have a relatively small team with few resources at the minute, and
Uh-huh.
and so we don't know if it's really the best thing to do to try and do the science at this stage with a small team. We think it's better to grow the team, grow the movement, get more resources before we try and take on big projects like that.
Have you had pushback from the scientific community of like, well, this is impossible and we can't achieve it, so we have to find another way to reduce harm?
No.
No scientific pushback from the community saying, "Oh, you want to undo the universe? Yeah, we have means to do that. We can figure it out, and here's the timeline for it."
Well, the thing is, scientists and science, it's about being open-minded and just practically going through life and operating and working with things, right?
Well, they can also tell you what's feasible, right, from a scientific standpoint.
Well, we're not depending on vacuum decay.
No,
We might not be able to get past our galaxy. We might not even be able to get past our solar system.
we have to get past our galaxy because the whole point was that like the reason that we have to be last is because we're the only ones who have the ability to turn the lights off. And so like if we can't get past our galaxy, then there's infinite amount of suffering out there that we are then allowing to happen, and it would be immoral to annihilate ourselves and not take care of all of the rest of the suffering.
We have to do as much as we can and the best that we can. But if it's physically impossible for us to get to another galaxy, for example, then that's where our moral obligation ends. It ends at
Oh, okay. I think this is where the schism happens. I think that I'm willing to allow. I guess I'm willing to allow a bit more suffering while we figure out how to get to the next galaxy. I think I want to.
Well, no, we would.
I think I want to go farther.
My
Well, yeah,
point
but you're willing. You're saying we can't,
no.
so we
My
end there.
My point was that if it proves impossible, right? If there's literally no reason to keep investigating it,
How could we know? I mean, with the fullness of time, how can you know? You're already willing to like accept some 1,000 years. I mean, like theoretically, like there has to be a ceiling that you're willing to limit, that you're willing to accept before you're like, all right, this and no more. Because after this, the suffering gradient is too much, and our equation becomes imbalanced, and we have to do it now, or we can't do it anymore, right?
I completely agree, actually. And that is one of the most difficult calculations that you might have to perform. Do we allow some to keep suffering on the chance that we might be able to
Yeah.
help,
Yeah.
right?
And an entire other world's amount of suffering. Yeah, I mean, or 3 or 4. Like if we can get to another galaxy, I think it's worth the shot. I think you're a little short sighted in like how far we can let this go. We just have to. We have to look through the fullness of time. Nothing is impossible. I mean, some things are impossible, but
Yeah,
we can do it.
I agree with everything you said, really.
Okay, so we're gonna have to wait to do that. What do we do in the meantime?
Well, like I said, it's not about waiting around. There's lots to do in the meantime.
Sorry, not wait. I mean, well, they're waiting. I mean, sorry, wait. It'll take a while to achieve that. Can I say that instead of waiting? Waiting sounds like it's inactive, and I'm not saying be inactive. It'll take it a while to achieve that goal. What do we do in the meantime for suffering now? Or is it moot because we're going to handle it in the end and it doesn't matter?
Well, in terms of suffering now, we'll have no animals suffering on Earth.
We can't do that immediately. You're going to increase suffering that way.
Well, realistically, euthanasia is the fastest thing you can do for an animal. You know, if you want to give an animal therapy or something, it's going to take a lot longer than euthanasia. Okay, so
the world's pretty big. It's going to take a while to euthanize all animals, and then you're going to increase human suffering because of the lack of animals.
Any alternative.
Faster is this is like geological time scale. Faster is what? How fast?
Well, it's a lot faster than literally any alternative.
It's a lot faster than any alternative. Yes, but at the expense of the idealistic version of this is that we get it all done at once and we already have a way to move humans off of needing animals for anything. So if you can't solve for both X and Y there, I mean, you're going to increase suffering.
I don't think it's good to prioritize doing everything all at once, because then you're being narrow-minded by doing that, basically.
No, I'm just trying to minimize suffering. I'm not trying to do it. I'm only trying to do it because if you don't do it all at once, suffering increases immensely on the human side.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that.
Tell me why.
Because doing it all at once could take a lot longer. You know, if it takes an extra 100 years to develop a way to do it all at once, then you've allowed an insane amount of unnecessary suffering in the meantime.
You have okay. Will there's going to be suffering. We're going to increase suffering a lot. Our movement, and I'm gonna say our because I'm in. Again, I'll sign up for the newsletter. You tell me when I'm in. Our movement is going to increase suffering along the way by accident. We're infallible. We're good. It's going to be accidental. There's no clean way to do this, right? But are we going to be okay with it?
Just think of it this way: we can spend lots of suffering points compared to the billions of years that we're
Sorry, I coughed.
Compared to spend a lot of years of savings, save now, right? We're going to make massive savings, and you got to spend money to make money, right?
Yes, I love it. Sorry. All right, this has been super fun. I do have another question. What if the Christians are white? What if death is awful? What if there is an afterlife and we have torture in afterlife? We don't know this, and it seems like, oh man, like if there's any inkling that could be true, 0.001%, that everything that dies suffers for eternity. Oh man, did we make a mistake?
Well, no, because firstly, we're going to die anyway, so it doesn't make a difference.
Oh, okay, good point. Yeah.
Secondly, we're preventing new life forms
from coming to do. Yeah, okay. You got me there. Yeah, man, I'm in. You got some brochures that I could hand out to my community? Like, how do I get active?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. We don't really have brochures or leaflets or anything like that.
Come on, where's your marketing guy?
Well, I feel like most of them would just go straight in the bin or to the We're focusing on online activism. We do street protests and things like that, and street interviews.
How does that go? What should I expect is if I go down to the Springs, Colorado Springs, if I go down the mountain, and I go to the street corner and I start, what should I expect? What am I going to get hit with?
Well, just watch a few of my streams and you'll hear all of it.
All right, man. Hey, it's been super fun talking to you. I have followed. This has been a blast. I really enjoy talking about this. I'm going to check out the website. I have a long drive to make ahead of me, and I've literally been sitting here at a gas station next to the highway, just putting my drive off. You have a good day, man. Have fun talking to folks on TikTok.
You too. Thanks, Jared. Take care.
Have a good one.
What a great guy. Now we are having on Shroom something, which is not allowed to be announced. But I think they're a supporter, so this might be a good conversation. Or I could get... I could be wrong. It's not joined them in. Let's... Shroom, are you coming up or not? If not, then we're going to take someone else who might be much more controversial. All right. Let's go with controversy. Shroom, if you want to join later, let me know. Okay, loading the next guest. We're loading them in. Is it going to load? Is it going to load? What do we think, chat? Hello.
Yo, I'm back.
How's it going?
All right, I'm back. All right, listen. So last time you dropped me, right? Because I was trying to understand your point, but maybe you took it in the wrong way, right? Because like you gotta understand, like your community is niche, right? You're the minority, right? So I'm trying to understand you, right?
Yep.
So about my question, bro, like self harm or whatever, right? I'm not the type of guy where I hear your point, I'm like, all right, just off yourself or something like that. But I do want to hear your point though, because like you are the minority group, right?
Yeah.
And like I could hear like a counterpoint, like if you're like such a minority, and like if you're like unhappy, you can like take yourself out the equation, right? Like, what do you say to that?
Most sufferers can't opt out, right? Because animals can't make that kind of decision. Children, babies can't make that.
I mean, well, not babies. I give you babies, right? Because they can't really, self harm unless by like accident. But I mean, like everything else kind of can. We can. Victims can. Animals do it a lot too. Like
the problem is that you're suggesting a system where we force people to suffer so badly that they have to commit the ultimate act of self-harm, right? It's a horrible thing, not a nice thing. No one should have to do
well,
that.
everything here is not a nice thing, right? Extinction, it's not really the nicest thing I'm thinking on the top of my head. And like your point, like when you're talking to the one guy, I think his name was Garrett, whatever earlier. When you talking about like you said his free will don't matter, basically, like his choice don't matter. Like to me, like when you speaking about like the sexual assaulters and all that, like you're not in that vein, but you're in that vein. Like you're not like you're not in that
do
type of.
Do you think police officers that tackle criminals are bad for using force? For forcing their opinions on others?
No.
Right.
It depends because a lot of cops do bad jobs, but for the right cases, no.
Forcing others to do things is the way the world has always worked, right? So we're not
right. So why can't we? So if the world already forces us to suffer, right? And that's just the way the world works. Why fight it then? Right? That's just how it is, right? They force it on us. Listen. It's been here longer than us. It's gonna be here after us, right? Why fight it?
We're on the side of the victims, right? Who you are happy to condemn to suffer and opt out in a cruel, horrible way, right? We're saying that it's unfair, it's wrong, it's terrible for them, it's unacceptable. The system of exploitation, right? You're forcing life to exist and suffer and commit self-harm, then you are an oppressor. You're committing acts of evil, basically. You're exploiting others wrongly and evilly.
Okay, but all right. So when you say things like when someone's choice don't matter because it's a chance of suffering, so I have to do this. That's something like a conqueror would say. Like something born out of hubris. I'm reducing their harm, I'm making their population better. Meanwhile, like they just killed like 60,000 people, right?
Yeah, but the thing is, right? Having others think for you and make the responsible decisions for you is yet again the way the world works. So you're applying impossible standards to me that doesn't apply to anything else in the world, right?
Well, because you put yourself in that position. When you say you had the button, or if it's up to you, this is how it's going to go, right? So I'm putting you in that position of power, right? You're in a position of power, and everyone says, "Oh, I'm doing this for the greater good. I'm making their schools safer. Rape's going down." which those are good things. But meanwhile, on the other hand, like you're probably gonna go down in history as a bad guy. You just killed 100,000 people, right? Like you're not gonna be looked at as a like a good guy in history. Like no one's gonna be like putting up your
There
statue.
won't be anyone to look back and read history. Thanks for coming on, though. All right, let's crack on with some more interest. The queue is starting to look interesting. We've got Schizo James. That sounds interesting. We've got It's ADL. That sounds decent. Let's try and get Schizo James on. That sounds fun.
Hello.
How's it going?
Not too bad. I mean, I don't see. Obviously, you've got this whole, I don't know where to start, to be honest, because I don't think it's like, I don't think it's generally possible for you or me to convince each other that our ways are bad, because it's the exact opposite ends of the spectrum. I would definitely advocate personally, we need lots more people, we need lots more humans. Well, obviously you are, end it all essentially, which to me, no sane person would actually follow this, because everyone has a sense of self-preservation.
I think that's quite a statement, really.
I mean, because obviously your idea is the end of the world, right? And not most sane people, and I would put this quite high, no one wants to, people want to go on, whether that's through their own selves or through the descendants,
The thing is, the best way of seeing it and to understand it is like effectively Earth is hell, right? Now, again, I'm an atheist, but linguistically and effectively, right, descriptively, it is hell, okay? Most life that gets here has a terrible life and a terrible death to boot, okay? So it's a really horrible experience for most life born here. So it's really just preventing new life and innocent life forms from being sent to hell, right? That's not a crazy thing. That's the compassionate thing to do.
I would have to disagree.
Okay.
I see your point. You could say, Earth is hell, especially if you live, in Africa or Asia compared to, Europe or North America. But considering what those continents themselves had, America and Europe, 100, 200 years ago, it would have been absolutely horrific, standard-wise, for us to live there. And for what we have now, as history and technological progress keeps getting better, we, in a sense, escape this hell that we have.
But the thing is that the conditions and comfort and all of that has never improved even a little bit for animals. Okay, never, ever, ever. They've never had their quality of life improve in their entire history. Okay, so they are the majority of the population on the planet. They are the majority of the stakeholders. You're talking about a small minority of life on the planet.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I would, again, we are at the top of the food chain. I think we should stay there. It would be idiotic of me to try and make other animals on the same level as me for, self-preservation reasons. Again, I wouldn't want to have the same rights as a cow for some reason. And for us as the builders of modern world, as the builders of Earth, we should probably stay at the top. And all life forms are secondary to us, really. And they haven't really been able to pose a challenge to us in any meaningful way. So I don't, I assume you're a vegan by chance, or you're not a vegan. So a vegetarian?
No.
So when you say that's a bit hypocritical of you to try and the suffering of animals while you're continuing that suffering for them.
Yeah, veganism is actually it actually causes worse suffering, especially to wild animals. So it's actually not a bad thing to not be a vegan. Technically, it's a bad thing to be a vegan.
I mean, that is definitely a nuanced topic, but you are helpful to the the animal holocaust that we kill millions of pigs, cows, chickens.
Again, you're hyper focusing on a minority, right? So you're ignoring the majority of the population, focusing on a minority. That doesn't seem very logical.
Well,
Can you
it's
explain?
quite easy to point to that because obviously, humanity could survive without rhinos or something. You know what I mean? Like with most important creatures for us to continue is livestock, and like bees and bugs and whatnot. But most other animals are kind of secondary to them.
So you came on to discriminate and say that because they're animals, they can go screw themselves.
Yeah, because humanity is on the top of the food chain.
Well, thank you for that, hateful message. It's good education for the viewers to see, the levels of hatred and discrimination that we're dealing with, okay, that you should be against, right? Animals don't deserve to suffer, and, the only way you can excuse it is to say, for my privilege, which is wrong and evil and selfish, cruel, unnecessary. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Doing well. Catching up on some lunch before I play some video games today, so
Nice.
pretty good.
Sweet.
But yeah, I think I would like to talk about I guess to me, your prompt is not necessarily wrong, but I would like to talk about why this belief should be right and why you think it goes above, I guess, other beliefs that maybe total extinction is not the right way to go. I'm pretty neutral in terms of I guess meaning in life. I believe in the natural law. Things are just the way they are. I don't believe in like a objective moral, objective morality. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a position based on morality, a zero tolerance. It's a zero tolerance policy on victims, suffering, exploitation. So it's the only position in the world. You're asking why it's better than other ideologies, because it's the only ideology that says no one should have to suffer for the benefit of others, that it's unacceptable to exploit others, to make them suffer, and to allow them to suffer. And that's unfortunately not the status quo. We live in a world where we have slavery, we have animal slavery, we have racism, war, violence, crime, all of these terrible things. And, who pays the price is the victims, and they suffer. But literally everyone, and I do mean every single person, is in favor of this exploitative, cruel system where essentially they are prioritizing the privilege of the minority, and it doesn't even matter if it is the minority or majority, but they're essentially prioritizing the privilege over the safety from suffering and safety from extreme suffering, right? So it's by default an evil, exploitative, oppressive system where by default the lucky ones benefit and the unlucky ones pay the price for the sake of the lucky ones. So only the lucky ones benefit from being forced to exist in this world, and everyone else is basically the slave of the lucky ones who are saying, the suffering must continue because I'm not finished with my pleasure yet.
So, I mean, I think everything that you've mentioned is spot on. But do you think that people who may be coming into existence in the future have any form of right or say in terms of, whether or not they want to play in the system. And, there's many people out there that like do want to improve the system. Some, I guess, sort of anecdotal evidences that we do see in terms of two different things here, right? One, you're saying that we live in a system that most people are suffering, which I do agree with. But the thing that you're claiming is that it would be right to kind of end/prevent future sufferings from happening in the future. So the second part is kind of more of what I would like to talk about in terms of what you mean it's a right thing to do. Like maybe you can say that in your opinion, right? You can see that you're going to stop the endless amount of sufferings that might come in the future. But if you look at personal perspective, I think in the US, if you look at people that's jumped off of the Golden Gate Bridge, everyone that survived said that, even though suffering took over their mind, every single person that survived has not tried it again. And every single person, said that while they were in the air falling, the only thing that they can think about is that they wanted to keep existing in their, somewhat suffering existence. There's this philosopher that I follow a lot. His name is Viktor Frankl. I'm not sure if you heard of him. He was one of the survivors of Holocaust, and he's had a lot of really good writing since then. His entire family was exterminated by the Nazis during the Holocaust. And, he lived a lot of his adult life in the internment camps, endlessly suffering. But for him as a human being and in his human experience, if you read his book, he found some solace in that. He found some form of unique human experience that I think that latches onto a little bit of like, the human indomitable spirit of some form of optimism. And also, I think lastly, in talking about the human suffering portion, I think if you look at Eastern philosophy, it's something that, we can't really read their mind and know these like enlightened, like Buddhist monks are really enlightened and really not suffering. But there have been a lot of humans that dove deeply into this in the last 1,000 years, more than 1,000 years, where, in Eastern philosophy, detachment is to end suffering. Suffering, in their opinion, is not existence, is more of attachment to earthly things. And while I do agree with you that we do live in a pretty crap system, that most of us are, even if not being a direct slave, we're slaving ourselves away to labor, to the minority that are very rich and powerful. But I'm wondering if what you mean by is correct and causing extinction and complete prevention of future suffering is taking away some of the perhaps beauty and perhaps I don't know if the right word is life changing.
The beauty will still be here, right? When there's no life on the planet, there will still be a sunrise, right? So the beauty will still be there, and it will be even more beautiful because there'll be no suffering going on underneath, under the sun, right?
So I completely agree with you. I don't think humans are special. I don't think any animals are special. I'm a optimistic nihilist. I don't find special meaning I don't find special meaning or like a special motivation to continue the human existence. I guess I just disagree with proactively ending that existence. I guess I kind of follow the rule of
proactively defending the victims. Basically, you have to be proactive with it. If you're not willing to defend them, then they won't get defended.
Well, why don't you, advocate for maybe self-unaliving legal and on Earth, so people can come in and make that choice themselves. Do you think that it is correct to, I guess, in your philosophy, to enact your opinion and force others to follow that? Because isn't that a more extreme version of the system that we live in?
No, that's a less extreme version of the system we live in.
Sorry, can you say that one more time? You cut off for a second.
Less extreme version of the system we live in. We already live in a system where decisions are made for us by other people. We already live in a world where there's several laws that we probably disagree with, that we have to comply with anyway. Everyone is forced to exist, whether they like it or not. So that's a harm.
Would you say
it's
that
unrealistic to say that we shouldn't enforce anything. Everything is enforced. That's the way the world works.
I agree. During COVID, I was telling people like, hey, why do we have seatbelt laws, right? I mean, my personal, very subjective opinion is that I guess I don't think any laws should exist as long as people are not directly hurting each other. I think seatbelt laws and even to the extreme, drunk driving laws are not logical to me. You should be punished when you hurt someone. You shouldn't be punished for doing something that's not actively hurting someone. But I think going back to your point a little bit, do you think that the middle step between now and the philosophy of total extinction would be maybe to advocate for legal self-unaliving in every country? I actually think that would be an amazing step to like take towards your goal, right? Would you agree or like disagree with that?
I would disagree with it. Yeah.
Why not? I mean, why do you disagree with it? Yeah.
A couple reasons. Firstly, for every human that either stops existing or doesn't come into existence, millions of wild animals suffer and are forced to exist as a result. Because for every human, large amounts of land are consumed. You've got factories working for you. You've got agriculture making your food, data centers providing your internet and whatnot. So you've got cities, houses that you live in. All of this stuff takes up space that would otherwise be occupied by wild animals killing each other and suffering and starving and stuff like that. So we have to prioritize. We have to look at the bigger picture. And secondly, it wouldn't make sense for our.
Sorry, could you explain your first point? When you say like we're occupying spaces that animals would otherwise be wild and kill each other, can you explain what you kind of mean by that? Like, I guess, are you saying that even if the humans start unaliving themselves, there would still be suffering in the animals? Is that what you meant by your first point?
Kind of the opposite, actually.
Okay, go ahead.
As humans, we've built cities, we've built factories, and lots of things, roads, that make it impossible for there to be wild animal populations in those spaces. And that essentially results in less animals being born in those spaces and less suffering as a result. So in the current system that we live in, the capitalistic system we live in, fewer humans means more wild animals suffering, right? So deforestation, that's a good thing, because it means that there's going to be less wild animals reproducing and forcing each other to suffer in those spaces. Okay. Now, we also are against the cruelty of suicide and things like that.
Well, no. Wait. Why would you combat cruelty? Because you're trying to push for total extinction without choice. Go ahead. Sorry.
Let me take that back, actually. So, yeah, we do support euthanasia, especially in extreme cases for humans.
Why not in casual cases?
Well, like I said, we have to weigh that against the animal suffering that might come as a result. It depends on the situation, because if we were in charge of the government, maybe that dynamic wouldn't even be at play.
Who's we?
The pro-extinction movement.
Got it. I have a lot of dreams and goals like that. I still wish maybe one day I can become, go into the government. But I agree with your sentiment there. Please keep going.
I guess that's it, really. We do support sorry, let me finish. Actually, we do support euthanasia for where it really is necessary, sure. But
But you're saying, okay, I'm understanding your point. You're just saying like, look, humans are a lot of the problem as you've described, but it's not all the problem because you're saying that all existent, even in the natural animal kingdom, if we take into account times before humans have even started building civilization and villages, you're saying that look, dinosaurs back in the time, creatures back in the time, they were still suffering because there was still this food chain going on. There was still all these like ice age, you know, major changes to Earth that a lot of organisms that may have existed probably have suffered, right? That's what you're saying. So you're saying that even if humans legalize euthanasia and greatly dwindle down our numbers, because let's say in a hypothetical situation, a big population goes for the legal euthanasia. What you were claiming to me is that like animals would take over and it would start the whole animal kingdom food chain life cycle again where there would still be suffering, right? That's what I gather from what you relayed over.
No, but I mean, we need a strong, a big and healthy population of humans. We want humanity to keep thriving and keep flourishing because humans are the vehicle for ending the suffering of others, including animals, right?
Yeah.
Now, so we're against the human population reducing, okay? That's counterproductive. And
Wait, total extinction, does that include humans?
yeah.
So total extinction, okay.
But
Yeah.
we have to go last.
So I am still understanding what you're saying. I think total extinction includes human extinction.
Yeah. But
Okay.
we have to go last.
Yeah, so we're not disagreeing with each other. I was just relaying your point. And I think what you said about how, you know, right now you don't want the human population to dwindle. I think maybe I arrived at a different conclusion, but I think initially you were saying that, you know, we're taking up all these space for animals. If we're gone, then animals would come in and, you know, they would eat each other or kill each other and they would suffer. But you're also saying that on top of that, there is an importance for humans to keep driving the vehicle for the total extinction because otherwise animals would take over and animals don't have the ability to push for total extinction like we do.
Yeah, so if humanity goes extinct, then animals will continue to suffer cruelly and unfairly for billions of more years, basically.
Well, I mean, I think on the bright side, you know, the existence of humans right now actually might save us from total extinction. If you look at, you know, the scientific fact that the sun is eventually going to die. And right now, though, we do have all these vehicles that companies are producing that is trying to take us out of the solar system, that is trying to get us to go exist on a different planet. If anything, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you there. I think, do you see, I guess I'm more asking a question so I understand. Do you see a possibility of the continuing existence of the human population making it harder and harder for total extinction to actually happen? Because we do know that the sun has a life date. And eventually, if only animals exist, and, you know, I don't know, are monkeys going to grow up and build spaceships? Total extinction is on the map for us. But the existence of humans right now is actually what is inching us away from that possibility. This is a separate topic in terms of the morality or not. But because we're talking about whether or not we want humans to continue existing, I am kind of wondering what your thought is on that in terms of inching us away from total extinction with the natural death of the sun.
I mean, that's billions of years away. So,
I mean, you were talking about animals suffering for billions of years, but I mean, we do know that the sun is going to like explode or, I mean, die, right? And our solar system is just going to become a vacuum.
so you're saying, you know, what if humans colonize other planets?
Well, not what if humans colonize other planets, but humans find a way to fix it. Whether that's colonizing other planets.
Find a way to do what?
To fix the eventual death of the sun, whether that is colonizing other planets or finding some other scientific discoveries.
I I'm not really following because I mean we support space exploration. We want to do universe-wide extinction so that we're going to need to get out there into the galaxy and stuff, right?
So, wait, that actually brings up a whole infinite amount of questions. How would you know when you found out about every possible living things in the universe? Like when do you say, "Hey, we've checkboxed every single existence there is in the universe, and now we're gonna turn everything off and we're gonna totally extinct"? That actually, like, I was picturing the movement to be ready in 100, 200 years, but now you're talking about like, I, I don't know. That actually just increased the scope to almost like infinite, right? Because as far as we know, with our small human brain and science, the universe is expanding, right? There are the possibility of new planets, new life being created. But maybe what we could do is create a device that somewhat like resets like the Big Bang or something that actually, destroys the universe as in its entirety. I guess, do you have any ideas or thoughts around that? Or is it just kind of, slowly building up to the future?
Well, we should carry out extinction at every step of our potential, right? Obviously we're going to start colonizing our solar system. Maybe
We
we'll.
start with the animals first?
What do you mean?
Should we start with the animals first? Like
Yeah,
here on Earth to kind of small down our like scope, I guess.
we need to remove our dependence on animals and then remove the animals, or maybe at the same time.
Yeah.
Then we need to have the most vast and thorough extinction for the universe possible. And, we might be able to rely on robots and AI to do that, in which case humanity wouldn't need to keep suffering in the meantime. However, we would need to be sure that there'd be no downsides to relying on robots over humans. For example, solar flares can potentially knock them out, whereas they wouldn't knock us out. But let's just picture that we've done animal extinction on Earth. We're starting to colonize our solar system and our galaxy. We're starting to do extinction in our galaxy. We're researching whether or not it's possible to traverse the vast distances between galaxies to continue on the mission in other galaxies. Realistically, I do think this will all just be automated by robots, before long, probably. So they're going to have to make the decisions. They're going to have to do the research, do the science, and they're probably going to be able to do it a lot better than we can.
Yeah.
But it's a question of just doing as much as possible. So, you don't wait for the ultimate technology before you do animal extinction. If you can do animal extinction, you do that first, then you start going to space, etc. So we can definitely work on maybe seeing if there is a way to prevent the universe from restarting, or finding out how it works and all that, right? But, suffering reduction and elimination is going to be the driving force behind all of it at all times.
Well, the amount of scope that this had just increased to, this kind of went a little bit from, I guess, in my mind, like I said, like a few hundred years effort in terms of aligning everyone on Earth to now the infinitely vast amount of space. I guess if the goal of the total extinction is to prevent future suffering, and your initial claim and thought is that, I mean, I'm sure there's way more. In my head, every existence is suffering, especially for humans, because who doesn't suffer when you're at the end of your life and you're thinking about whether or not you're going to exist and whether or not there's going to be a life after. But the main point that you did mention in the beginning of this conversation is about the system that people are put in where, the majority kind of benefits the minority. I guess in the beginning of the conversation, I'm like, okay, this kind of makes sense in terms of the effort that it might take. But then now it kind of seems like the project scope has now expanded to the rest of the universe. And I guess my question to you is that do you think that that is a better way to go about ending suffering in terms of maybe going through millions of years of and also, you know, an exponential amount of humans existing to possibly get us out there to scope out the life of the universe, to really truly understand and know that, hey, we are putting down total extinction and we're not just doing this like half-assed, rather than what is going on right now in the system, and then maybe putting in, you know, effort towards changing that system, even maybe through violence, even maybe through maybe even through violent means, to kind of change that system of suffering that you were mentioning. Because your reasoning to me about the human suffering wasn't like, you know, wasn't really about like the human consciousness existential crisis that we all have. You're more talking about like a physical system that could be changed, whether it's through peaceful, violent means, through time. Just kind of wondering your kind of take on that.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it kind of just went over my head, really. It's really just about doing our moral obligation to minimize suffering. That's it.
So but so in talking about minimizing suffering, which I do agree with, I think a lot of humans, like I was talking about Eastern Buddhism, they all want that. I think all humans suffer. It's been said many times, existence is suffering, right? But your initial way to get there, to end all suffering, well, would you say that ending all suffering is the most important thing, is the number one priority over anything else?
Correct.
So your path to get there, right, as we've conversed, it kind of went from, you know, we need to end human life, because initially I thought what you were saying is that humans are kind of causing suffering onto the world, right? But then now that I'm understanding more of what you're saying, you're kind of more saying the former, which I mentioned, existence is suffering. But then the path to kind of get to end all suffering, we went from the scope of Earth and our solar system, and now you're kind of saying that, hey, we must get out there, we must find and seek out all life forms that exist in our infinitely, and from our understanding, infinitely growing universe that is generating life as we speak, right? But in the pathway to do that, right, we don't know how many giant length of years it might take. Human population and existence is also going to exponentially increase, which means, you know, we are creating more and more existences that are going to suffer inevitably. And I guess I am wondering that now that the scope of the project has become almost infinite, now the timeline, at least in my head, and you can tell me differently, went from a few hundred years to, I mean, I don't want to go too extreme, maybe hundreds of thousands of years, not millions.
The project scope didn't change during the course of this conversation. That's always been the scope.
No, yes. I mean, sorry, my understanding of it has grown and improved. And I guess what I'm saying is, do you think that suffering might be ended more, even through the means of what you mentioned before, if in the near years you guys start like a movement, and maybe even through violent means take over the system that you believe is causing suffering, to improve the amount of suffering that is happening in the world, rather than having this infinite scope of ending suffering with a project that seamlessly have no end? Maybe it could be a checkpoint to total extinction. But is that something that you guys are like thinking of?
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to kick you because we've got another guest that's been scheduled to join. But I didn't really understand a thing he was saying, to be honest. That's actually why I kicked him. Mean of me, sure, and maybe he can find it in his heart to forgive me, but I just felt like he was saying nonsense for like half an hour. I probably can't even upload this stream to YouTube now. It's done. Anyway, let's take a break. You can read more about it on the website, and all of your questions will be answered there. Yeah, let's chill out for a bit and be back later. Thanks for joining us, guys, and follow my channel, please.